Yeah.
But
Oh,
everybody's.
wow. It really is.
Have we, let me know when we started.
The cameras are on and I just unmuted everything.
Okay,
We need 5 in the room.
right.
To have a forum.
Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I know, he's asking for doing executive.
Okay, right.
Yes, but we were gonna have a longer meeting today, so we could move the time.
Yeah, this ends could take a long time.
I thought it would be
No,
very-
and we don't know how long the Dade County. Just to let everybody know, it is approximately 9:30, but I typically give 2 to 3 minutes of grace time, particularly as all of you that have arrived can notice, there's no parking here.
That's right.
I'm
all the way in the back.
Yeah, there seems to be a party going on. So at 9:33, I will gavel us in. And according to Apple and me, it's currently 9:30. 9:31. Yeah, just turned 9:31.
It looks like Sprint is having a training session today downstairs.
For Spirit.
Oh, that's what it is. You're supposed to be moving to the other side.
Yeah, they have all new.
Dania Point, right? You're building on something over there.
Oh, it's standing now. Commissioner, attending the Pines? I don't know yet. Okay. Are you, Mayor Ross?
I'm going to try, but I don't think I'm gonna be in town.
I'm not going.
My problem.
What time is it? I think it's a 4 o'clock workshop, but there's a whole
Yes.
separate book just on the workshop, which has a lot of backup material, which I think you can get online, if you have links in it, but it's Mr. Dodge's analysis.
Kudos to Charlie Dodge for showing up at the county commission meeting.
He called me on the way there. I was actually, to be honest, with you, a little bit surprised. He
I was thrilled.
wanted to be there.
He wanted to hear it himself,
He did.
and that was very good for him.
Not just for the city side, but for
Right.
hear everything and get a sense for getting prepared for.
He's only one of the city
Yeah,
managers.
because I'm actually jumping on a meeting right now.
But I know he went to it by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. No staff, nobody.
That's what I was very glad to see him there.
Very focused on that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. How does Kathy do it? She usually does it.
I was Sabrina Gavilana saw her yesterday. I saw her at a Chris function and she was very unhappy about the meetings. No, yeah, county commission meeting. You just don't understand. Actually, I do understand. I said that it's gotta be a partnership. Well, it can't be a partnership if you have veto power. Then of course, yes, it's going to be a partnership because. If you're one vote out of 30, you can't pass anything. So that means.
I'm going to show you how to make a request.
So the meeting changes without the.
Go back to your home.
The hour of 9:33 having arrived, I would like to call this meeting of the South Florida Regional Planning Council to order. Today is Monday, October 17th. I will ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Led by Mayor Ross. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
I'm on the council.
And I will ask, I don't know who calls the roll of the,
Today, we're gonna have Lisa call roll.
if you will call the roll, please. And announce, I believe it's currently the non-presence of a quorum.
Bailey, Poplin,
Here.
Kate's,
Here.
Cold Iron,
Here.
Cardino,
Here.
Burr,
Here.
Garcia,
Present. Morning.
Gilbert, Goldberg, Hoffman, McGee, Ross, Ross,
Here.
Eugene,
Here.
Giaddi, Andriata, Quinn,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Chair Geller.
Here.
Director, Mr. Chair, I
Trying to
have
find-
a legal quorum under the statute and under the,
We do.
yes, I believe you do.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
95.
We're bold, but we're close.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to quote,
Yeah, no,
and Commissioner or Mayor Ziotti.
I knew that she was coming today because
Right.
she had confirmed.
Again, with the parking,
Yes.
it's more difficult.
Steve, period. We are one person short of quorum, period.
Need at least one,
Coming.
one third of the voting members of the Regional Planning Council are physically present. The balance can be on the gallery. We have nearly a quorum,
Okay. All right, well,
which you can theoretically begin as a workshop and perhaps segue into the conversation as you see fit, Mr. Chair, or defer to.
well, right now,
We do, and that's another option, Mr. Mayor, which is the chair, Senator, to essentially convene by your rule as an executive committee. You have sufficient membership for that purpose in the room for that.
Until Mary's not here.
Yes. and
I am waiting for her to respond to my text. Okay, why don't we,
They're all.
I don't want to start the public hearing. The only thing, Sam, can we start the SEDS review? I realize we can't take any action,
Correct.
but can we start this,
You
the
could.
SEDS, and then again have to wait for the full
The
quorum
answer
to
is
vote?
that your meeting, you would be meeting today in formation as an
Executive committee.
with the chair and other members physically
Okay.
present here. And those that are not on the executive committee would then be able to participate on the gallery either way. And then to the extent that you have a physical quorum under the new statute, which is 120.525 and Senate Bill 1398, you would be able to proceed. Ratify.
Okay,
You may begin legally.
okay, well, let me ask 2 questions first. What is the difference between these 2 copies since they're both yellow ones?
This is red line.
Red light, oh, this one is not. Okay, gotcha. Sam, can we, I was going to take the sets up. What, in terms of the comp plan for Miami-Dade? Since I don't want to keep particularly waiting too long, but we cannot take official action. Is that correct?
The executive committee, if I may respond, Mr. Chair, Senator, the executive committee could take action to formalize its review, conduct a public hearing. The process and procedure and the traditional practice and custom has been that if the executive committee meets, makes a decision, that the next regular meeting of the council could then ratify the decision.
Okay,
So,
well,
which could be today.
Right.
Right.
what I'm going to do is put this off for 10 or 15 minutes to see if Mayor Ziotti shows up. And then as soon as she does get here, then we'll stop sensing and take up that item. But if she is not coming, then we will take you up in executive committee. I prefer to give you a final response, not have us have to come back.
Mr. Chair, if you will,
Yes.
because of the physical presence requirement, you have Mayor Ross and Commissioner Kaplan who are here this morning. It would be useful if you would appoint them on a temporary basis to fill roles on the executive committee for the purposes of conducting the meeting.
To what roles would I be appointing them?
Just members of the committee.
Okay, I would like to temporarily appoint Mayor Ross and Frank, your mayor.
No.
You rotate to your council member. Okay.
Happy memory.
Council member Kaplan as members of the executive committee. And please, while I'm doing this, is
Yeah, I can
that
see.
Anna?
Well, I just wrote. it.
Okay, now, we're just trying to find out, Mayor Ziotti had RSVP, so we're just waiting. I will ask everybody to turn to,
Coming in late. He sent an email this morning,
Okay.
so he was gonna be in later, but he will be coming.
who said that?
Councilmember Goldberg.
Okay, and Mayor Ziotti has just responded She says she is on her way on Griffin Road.
Okay, she's.
Okay, so we will start on the SEDS, and as soon as she gets here, we will revert back to anything else we can vote on. This is the, I believe, Isabel, if you've been keeping count, I believe this is the 322nd draft of the SED. Or I could be wrong, it just seems that way.
There's a whole forest of trees.
Yes, we have, I know we are environmentally conscious, but we have trees wiped out. Rows of trees. On this,
Planting them.
yes, because I'm tired. Okay. Let's begin. I have not yet drafted the chair's letter because I want to see what we passed.
May I make a suggestion
Yes.
here?
Yes,
I suggest that since the council members had a copy, I'll be late, but they had a copy of the one that is not redlined,
right.
that we could just go through the additions of text that's different from what we sent to them earlier in the week.
Maybe, I'm gonna go through this
What do you like?
quickly, very quickly, really quickly, because I think have parts of this memorized and I have nightmares about it. I'm sorry,
We're gonna put it up for.
Yes,
people to see
okay.
on the-
and I want anybody that has any questions on this to raise them. And my last question is, when does this have to be mailed?
It needs to be turned in at the end of the month. to
Okay.
the EDA.
So, Sam, please verify that what I'm going to suggest is legal, that we can adopt the SENS today and authorize staff and the chair to make minor corrections that are brought up today or over the next. I'll give a deadline of Thursday for any written submissions. I pulled Thursday out of the air. You know, we can discuss that so that if you take this home and you read this in your spare time and you decide that, you know, you found a comma that was misplaced or something that you disagree with the wording on, you can still, after we adopt it today, make written submissions to us that will be reviewed by myself and staff.
The best
Can we
response,
do that?
Mr. Chair, Senator, the answer is so long as they're not non-material and non-substantive, the answer is that you can proceed, which I think is the same concept you're just espousing.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yes.
Okay.
the delivery?
It must be transmitted by the end of October,
To
which
the
is
EDA.
approximately 2 weeks from today.
Maybe if they understand the
Yeah.
process of the individuals that put this.
Why don't
together.
you go over the process with them and the individuals that put this together?
You know, that's an excellent idea.
Especially going over the really impressive SENS membership that has never been seen before in any of the census.
Are all the
Yes,
highlights or all the red lines, are those your?
Okay, it's, yeah, so this is why I was suggesting it might be more helpful for y'all.
I think these are the changes that were made at our last.
See, the red lines reflect the changes that have been going on for 3 months.
Okay.
So to avoid confusion, the changes that are merely highlighted in this draft is what's changed since we sent you this earlier last week.
Right.
So that's why I was saying, if you've been looking at the draft we sent earlier last week.
Well, this is easier.
My suggestion is that
I don't need to see every single.
not for the last 3 or 4 months, it's bad enough that we've had to see. So,
First, I will ask everybody to turn to I wanted to show the membership, which
okay,
was,
so on the big document, the one without the red line, it starts on page 82, since I had problems with the formatting, it's likely to be page 92 by the time it's correct. So on page 82 of the merely highlighted draft is where we have the list of our changes.
Anytime, bro.
Appreciate it.
okay, excuse me, whoever is on must mute your phones if you're not speaking, because we hear other people talking.
There you go, page 82.
Okay, so just to read the membership of the SEDS, or now that it's up, you can read it yourself. This is a really impressive group of people. We had, the SFRTA, South Florida Workforce. I thought we had more people than this on it.
It goes on to the next page, Chair Geller.
Oh, right, okay. Aha, we did. Well, the next page is talking about the work groups.
You know what, I'm gonna check that, because I do see
I don't
less
think
names.
that's
than-
correct.
No.
Yeah.
I do see less names than we did before.
Well-
Because before we had,
Well, I'm looking,
Gavin Pomadier on Miami-Dade College.
Yes.
right, no, I'm looking here, Bob Swindell, Greg Haley.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
This is listed under work groups, John Wenstein, but I think if they were actually,
No, they were both.
right,
They were both.
okay.
We will fix that.
So we will fix, but we had,
The never ending sense.
right, we had a very large group of literally the top business, academic and other leaders in South Florida. It was a truly impressive group. And Isabel, can you describe the strategy by which we put this together? The work groups, et cetera?
Sure, thank you.
Or is this a you question or an Arada question? I'll throw things to you
I
and you
can
can decide when you
start.
want to talk and when
Yeah.
she will.
So,
Before you go through this, just describe the
Right.
process.
well, the process is that as the set, as the EDA, Economic Development District, we are required, every regional council is an EDA. We're all required to update the sets every 5 years. Our last update was in 2017. The sets is a strategy for South Florida, not for the council. As such, the involvement of key stakeholders, experts is very important in the development set. In fact, I think Joe Goldstein was a member of one of our sets committee in the past. But so in this case, I would tell you that in all the years I've been in the council, I have never worked with a sets committee of this expansive and of the quality of the sets committee. Because the folks that were asked to be on the sets committee, it's not taking away from anybody else, but I'm just saying, these are the presidents of the universities, the presidents of business, the CEOs. It is the Miami-Dade College, the college, presidents. and Broward,
Council, Broward Alliance.
Yes. So, but at the very top level of the organization. And so, and that's great, because it really does. They were actively involved. They
Yeah.
weren't like not involved, they were actively.
They were attending themselves.
Yes. So,
I mean, Levan,
Mhm. Dr.
George
Hanbury.
Hanbury. They were attending themselves,
yes,
FPL,
Julia Roy.
Yeah.
All that.
I mean, they were sending their senior people here.
So we started with the sets update, I would say like in the middle of last year. It really kicked in, then with the chair's direction, we invited our guests, we did all that sort of thing, and our kickoff meeting was September of last year. After the first orientation meeting, if you will, the SEDS committee have identified some issues and work groups were formed, and there were 4 work groups. And we had a number of needs in the work groups, priorities, strategies identified. There were also projects identified, because one of the things about this says that's different from our last one is that we actually have projects that were identified by the stakeholders as important for funding. And those are listed in an appendix in the back. So, and they break out. I have the work group titles here so you can see when we focused. Our work groups were economic diversification, business attraction, workforce development, mobility and access, and environment and resilient infrastructure.
And we began with the SWOT analysis, which, we sent out questionnaires to all of our members, got a very good response rating. And here's, I see Mayor Ziotti, I believe, walking towards us. So, I think. I'm not sure if that's her or not.
We can resign as members of the executive.
There you go.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
but,
Not so fast.
yeah. So this is how we got here, and then we've reviewed this literally at least once, typically twice a week for the last 6 weeks, where, I mean, I can't look at this document anymore. And I think we are,
Welcome,
okay,
poor Madam.
yes, okay.
Madam Mayor.
And at this point in time, without objection, we will temporarily pass, and we will get back to this. And I will ask for a motion to approve the council agenda. But why do we do that?
It's formality and the rules actually provide for that.
Okay, we'll ask for motion to approve the council agenda, moved by Commissioner Kaplan, seconded by Mayor Ross. During discussion, seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, show that adopted unanimously. With your approval, I will temporarily pass the consent plan, both adopted and proposed, and we will move to a public hearing on Miami-Dade so as not to keep those people waiting. And then I will revert to the agenda if there's no objection. Seeing no objection, show that done without objection. The time is 9:51. I would like to open a public hearing on comp plan amendment review, Miami-Dade County CDMP 22-06 ER proposed. Let me ask if there is anyone on the screen that wishes to testify on that. I'm not asking them to testify yet. I'm just asking who we have. Then I'm going to ask who's here, so I'll have an idea in what order to take them in.
Ed Swaycon is part of the team, and he's been presenting on the amendment. He has a short.
Okay, is there,
I don't know anything
what's
else.
his name?
Ed Swaycon.
Okay, Mr. Swaken, is there
Right.
anyone else on the screen or on the phone that wishes to testify on Miami, public hearing? The public hearing has been opened on Miami-Dade County CDMP 22-06 ER. Is there anyone else? If not, let me ask in the room if there's anyone here who wishes to testify. Joe Goldstein? And you are attorney for?
For the applicant in the comp plan amendment application.
Thank you, sir. And I see there's two other people. Are they with you?
Yes.
Okay, will they be testifying?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Depends how bad things get.
All right, Sam, do people need to be sworn?
They do not. In the context of a comprehensive plan amendment, they would just simply be speaking the truth to the issues. On the record, should they be asked questions about that, staff may be making a presentation as well, which they will put on the record as well. And those members of the public who have appeared today for or against the applicant may be able to be heard during the course of the hearing.
Thank you. And Joe, can you give me the order of your speakers? There appear to be only two speakers, both you and the one person on the screen.
I have a very brief presentation, really. Mr. Swaycon is going to be the public comments
Okay, and who would you like to go first?
between Mr. Swaycon and me.
Yes,
I'll go first. I didn't know what
I'm gonna first ask about staff, right? But
I
I'll
think-
start and then
I think it's
I'm sorry, what?
I'll start and then kick it over to Mr. Swaycon.
Great. And Sam, I presume that we would hear from staff first, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, the theory typically is that staff make a presentation, allow the applicant to respond as appropriate, and then members of the public during the public hearing process be able to weigh in pro or con regarding the applicant's status.
Thank you. At this point in time, then I call on Christina Miskis.
Mhm.
Miskis, our principal planner for the SFRPC. Ms. Miskis, you're recognized, ma'am, to make your presentation and staff recommendation.
The record as Christina is approaching the podium or the microphone, these are not typically
Come over here.
put into judicial.
Right.
Because the council has a different regulatory role that
That's
it
not our
doesn't have anymore.
Christina,
Right.
you put that.
On some changes, but it's not.
Oh,
Okay.
That's not our business. Should be the, maybe the slide before or after, it should be there it is. That's just
Okay.
the general idea. Good morning, Christina Miskis here, Principal Planner from the South Florida Regional Planning Council. We are considering Miami-Dade County Comprehensive Development Master Plan, proposed amendment 22-06 ESR. Our recommendation from staff is to find it at this time generally inconsistent with the strategic regional policy plan, specifically policy 15.1. It is a development that is about 39 net acres, located west of Southwest 137th Avenue between Southwest 8th Street and Northwest 6th Street in Miami-Dade County. So it's west of the westernmost point of the 836, the Dolphin Expressway, as you head past the airport out west of Miami-Dade County. The land use designation for this proposed amendment would be going from open land to special district for the site, revising the CDMP land use element text to create the MIA transport hub. The intent is to develop the site as a truck parking facility and equipment storage facility, as well as other uses, commercial, retail, and ancillary uses. There has been a need, an unmet need identified for truck parking in Miami-Dade County by the Florida Department of Transportation and the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization. So regionally, we do acknowledge this need for parking. We do have supply issues in the region, and acknowledge that this could help alleviate those issues of the truck parking demand. However, there is the issue of the BBCR project. BBCR is the Biscayne Bay and Southeastern Everglades Ecosystem Restoration Project. It's being jointly managed by the South Florida Water Management District and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This 39-acre site is currently wetlands, and they have been identified as wetlands of regional significance by the Department of Environmental Resources Management in Miami-Dade County. And they are being considered for possible restoration as part of the BBCR project. The BBCR project is going to be is in an analysis phase currently. So they have different alternatives as to which sites they would choose to restore to meet their goals, which is to keep Everglades water in the Everglades, to improve cheap road to freshwater and coastal wetlands and the nearshore estuary ecosystem, as you can see in the slide, to store water in the north and move it south to the bay, and to provide supplement regional water with wastewater being
Okay,
used.
Ms. Miskis, can you show us, since you do have that map,
Yeah,
where is the property that we see all the arrows, where is the
Correct.
subject matter?
so I don't have a pointer, unfortunately. But you will see on page 2 of your handout as part of your agenda package, there is a better map that shows you the location in relation to BBCR analysis. I don't
Yes,
know if
but
you
it
could pull-
doesn't have the overlay that does.
Right, correct. So the 836, maybe, Joe, could you?
Is it just those 4 boxes?
Yeah,
Yes, correct. The subject property is only 39 net acres.
And where is
So
that?
it's very small and
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
right here.
right, that's
But I'm
it,
not seeing.
That's right, because that's not our map.
right?
Right.
We could pull up,
We're borrowing the map.
page 2 of the,
Is there enough?
I see this map, but I can't compare this
Agenda
map to
item.
that map.
I'm pulling it up
I
now.
think that actually Mr. Swaycon will probably have, I asked him to tune in. But Ed, do you have a map in your presentation?
I do. The map that they're going to bring up in their presentation is on page 2, provides some context, but the page 2 map in their presentation does not represent the BBCR study area. It just simply shows public-private ownership in this region.
Correct.
Okay.
So the development is outside the urban development boundary and is being considered for restoration, but broadly, there are various alternatives.
Okay,
The map on, we can look at the agenda item.
I have the agenda, but for some reason, the map is not under that, only the memo page in the complete agenda.
Okay,
Okay,
I don't know when you get to-
so we have the printout in front of us. It's the red line property of only 39 acres. The hatched area represents water preserve area, what is currently considered by the BBC a water preserve
when you say the
area.
hatched area, what is that? Are you referring to that map?
No, you're one of.
This map, okay.
And I think the applicant could probably better locate their property in reference to the overall BBC or macro analysis.
Thank you.
It is part of the East Coast buffer area. It is used currently for water preserve as part of this project. But we don't know to what extent this property is being envisioned to be part of the implementation. There's various alternatives.
What
So
is,
with a lack of information, I'm
okay,
sorry.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
With a lack of information at this time as to how this specific property is envisioned to be part of overall implementation, we just don't have sufficient data information to recommend consistency.
I understand. When will, we can't reasonably ask a property owner to hold off indefinitely while we wait for government to decide. So do you know at what point in time
Yes.
you expect the BBSEER to reach their recommendations?
June 2025.
Excuse me,
Yes,
if I
let's go,
could,
Jim.
please. The challenge we're having right now is we do not, so at the Miami-Dade County Commission, they voted to transmit to receive agency comments. Once they did that, we have 30-day window to do that. Our meeting is earlier in the 30-day window. We will not receive comments from the Water Management District until the end of the month. It will be heard again in Miami-Dade County, and then it will or will not be transmitted back to us as adopted.
Okay, Commissioner Fur.
Just for clarification, it says here that commission voted to transmit with change and deny.
That was a staff recommendation, was then denied. That was a staff
Miami
recommendation.
County staff's recommendation.
That's right. That was not the board's recommendation.
So the board's recommendation was to
Transmit with, I think, restrictions or title of restrictions. Yeah, number four, add the proffer declaration restrictions in the restriction table. Anyway, they transmitted with that.
Now, remember, everybody, we will be hearing a full formal presentation.
Yes.
Right now, we're just on the staff presentation.
So in the first paragraph, you see the board recommendation. The Board of County Commissioners voted to transmit the proposed amendment with the declaration restrictions, and they requested agency comments. So we are, as a commenting agency, are providing our comments,
Right.
which is, we do not have enough information from the Water Management District. And we did try to reach out to the BBC project manager. We do not have the comments from the Water Management District. So there is no possible way for us to determine whether or not there's a serious impact on these identified wetlands that are considered a wetland natural resource.
Okay, I want to be clear that I understand. First, let me ask a question. Do we know what the vote was at the county commission level?
I don't know if we have anyone from Miami-Dade County. I believe it was unanimous, wasn't it? Or
11-1?
transmit.
Okay, thank you. Now,
again, getting comment.
right, so are you saying, let's go, well, I know we have to transmit within 30 days of our
And this
receipt.
is our
The
time.
problem is that, as you said, we need to rely on the comments from the SFWMD.
Mhm. On this
Do
issue.
we have the ability to, at this point in time, recommend a finding of incompatibility based upon the fact that we don't have
That's our,
the
that
net-
is our recommendation.
the necessary information? And then I know we have to take an action, but can we take an action and then revisit this
Of course.
in 30 days after? Yes, ma'am.
Chair Geller, former Chair Bailey has his hand up. I believe he wants to
Gotcha.
make a comment.
All right, I will call on you momentarily, Chair. Okay, so I want to let staff
Okay.
complete their report. And then we want to hear possibly from the applicant, but based on what I've heard, what I think we may want to do is to enter a finding of incompatibility now based on our lack of information, and then have another hearing on this at our next meeting in 30 days, where we can look towards making a finding on the merits, because right now, my understanding is we simply lack the comments that we need to make that decision. Is that what, does that
Yeah,
work?
that would be the.
Sam, does that
Legally, yes, just to change your words, Mr. Chair, Senator, would be inconsistent as opposed to incompatible.
is consistent?
Yeah.
All right. Chair Bailey, then Senator Garcia.
Mr. Chair, we had a similar issue in the past, and I thought the way we went, we said basically we stated that we didn't have enough information at the time, and we would review it. But I don't think we adopted, we used the word inconsistent or anything, because I didn't think we had enough information to say whether it is or it's not at the time. And so I'm concerned about saying it's inconsistent with our standards if we don't have the proper information.
Okay, let me ask Ms. Kosia.
No,
Can you
I-
respond to
yes.
former Chair Bailey?
Yes.
And can you?
Yes, I could clarify this, and Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have a menu of options to pick from. We have two options. We have consistent or inconsistent. So the fact that we qualify our inconsistent recommendation based on information lacking is what we have. And we had the same conversation, I believe most recently with the logistics center was one of them. So the train logistics in South Miami-Dade, I think there was still information missing there. They haven't come back to us. But again, we don't have a menu of options, consistent.
Point of order.
It's not.
On the menu of options,
Yes, and Senator Garcia, as soon as the point is done, I will call on you, sir.
would there not be a third option to table or defer this?
We
No,
lose
we
our,
have-
yeah,
Lose your right to comment.
we won't have any.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the problem.
Right.
That's been the ongoing challenge under the statute.
Okay, Senator Garcia, you're recognized, sir.
And I appreciate it. I think that's where my comments were going to be on the inconsistent, and we at the county commission, we voted for this project to move forward only because, our staff, I think if I'm not mistaken, our staff was pretty much okay with it. The reality is that we do have a need in this community for not only truck parking, but we do have a need in that area to make sure that we take our trucks from our community out there to make sure that there is a parking. And I don't know what information may be lacking on our end. I don't know, because the information that was given to us, the Miami-Dade County Commission, I think was pretty much, it was all there. So I don't know, what is it that we're lacking on our end?
Well, let me ask our executive director if she can comment. And then again, what I think that I will recommend based upon what I've heard is find it inconsistent and say that the reason we are finding it inconsistent is we don't have the comments yet, and that this will be readdressed at our next meeting, and that the only reason where we can make a finding on the merits, and that the only reason we only have two options under the statute, consistent or inconsistent. And if we say that it is, if we fail to vote it either consistent or inconsistent, we lose our right to later comment on it. So I think it's just a badly written statute that is forcing this on us.
Right.
But let me ask first our executive
So,
director,
good
if she
morning.
can respond to
Good morning,
Senator
everybody.
Garcia.
Yes, so one of the benefits of all this web meeting stuff now is that you can actually watch the web meetings. So I did listen and pay attention to this conversation. As I recall, there was a conversation, Miami-Dade County staff recognized that there could be some limited development there without moving the urban development boundary. I'm sure Mr. Goldstein will correct if I misspeak, and I would ask you to. That there could be some limited development there that would not require moving the boundary, that you could have truck parking there because everybody recognizes the truck parking issue is a big one. But the proposed amendment is much broader than truck parking. It's shops, servicing, washing, all that. And we're not saying that it's not needed, that it's not council staff. All we're saying is Miami-Dade County, Durham says this is a site of wetlands of regional significance. And part of the conversation as county commissioners, you will know this, and city commissioners too as well. You don't get comments until you transmit. So they transmitted to get comments from the agency, the responding commenting agencies, including ourselves, DOT, and the Water Management District, among others. DOT did reply in time to say that it would not have an impact on the regional resource transportation resources. And remember, the council only comments on regional resources of significance like transportation and environment. So all we're saying here is this may be a spectacular idea. We are not criticizing the idea at all. But we think that's a local conversation for the Miami-Dade County Commission to decide what is the appropriate level and what they want to do in their county. All we can say as a commenting agency is there's wetlands here, the part of Everglades Restoration BBC project. We have not heard from the Water Management District or the Army Corps of Engineers to tell us one way or another if this is a critical part of their project. That's all we're saying. We're not, again, not criticizing. I know, because I live here, I see the trucks parked here all the time. So I have a great empathy for truck parking. So.
And that may be why there was no parking this morning.
I have great empathy. That's all we're saying. And we're not correcting anybody. Yes, Commissioner.
Senator, you're recognized for follow-up or for a series of follow-ups.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But then so we can't comment on this until we receive it then, because this is an issue that has been around for a little bit of quite some time, I think. And if we look, I think what happens at the county commission, if I'm not mistaken, I think there is lands adjacent to this that are developed. So this is where we have to be careful with sometimes some of the information they make out some of our staff, because when you look at the totality of it, they're saying this is not compatible with something, but yet we know that there's a need for parking, but yet on the property adjacent to it, that one's developed, but we don't, and so my at this point is, I hate having to delay these projects, because if we don't take any action now, then it delays it until the next meeting and until the next meeting. And this is, I think, sometimes what the issues that we have in government that I get frustrated with, have to wait. And meantime, people are losing out on their investments. So is there a way then either to transmit to the state to get opinions? Because if we have to get give opinions on this, and we're going to have to wait for South Florida Water Management, we have to wait for everyone when this already went to the Miami-Dade County Commission. This is where I would think that send it up to the state, get their opinions, and then bring it back.
Senator, my understanding, unless but let me ask Sam to comment. My understanding is that the other agencies, South Florida Water Management District, and I don't know how we can order the Army Corps to do anything, but my understanding is that at least SFWMD also has 30 days to comment. The difference is our meeting is earlier in the month than their meeting. So until they meet, we lack the information. When I heard 2025, I am not prepared to tell a private property owner that they have to wait for 3 years. But I am prepared to say that if we have to wait till our next meeting in order to get comments, but in order to do that, staff is telling me we have to today find it inconsistent, but in our comment, say that we have found it to be inconsistent based upon the lack of information that we have, and that we will be reviewing this at our next meeting once we get that information. So Um,
If I could,
yes.
I understand where there might be the confusion. Not yours, but just for everybody's. Again, the Miami-Dade County Commission passes the proposed amendment to the commenting agencies because they're seeking input, right? They have their staff reviewed, but they want additional input. We, as a receiving commenting agency, have a limited period of time to provide comment. If we do not provide comment within 30 days of transmittal, we lose our opportunity to comment. Comment goes to DEO, the Department of Economic Opportunity. Okay, Miami-Dade County will receive the comments, just like we've already received the comment that from FDOT that they don't see a problem with this, okay? So then Miami-Dade County will have another meeting. And they in their county will have collected all the comment and they will have their conversation. Miami-Dade County is an independent county. There is nothing that we are doing that is slowing any process. The only thing we're doing is participating in the process. You see, because the deadlines are set by statute, so there is no delay, none. All we're saying is,
hold on.
we don't
Sir,
have
you'll be
enough-
able to speak in the public testimony, but that's only,
yeah,
Right.
all we're saying as a council is that we have this amendment. And it will be judged on its merits in Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County asked for our input. There's two things that we could provide input on: environmental resources, regional, and transportation, because it's been limited. Transportation says no problem. Environmental resource, wetlands, we
yes,
don't
told us,
know.
yeah, right.
Because we don't
Yeah,
have
right.
it. So we're not delaying anything. This is a process. The
Okay.
train is moving and it's gonna get to the station and then it's gonna come back.
I understand. Okay, so, Sam, have you finished your report? Or have you started your report? Is there anything else you would like to say in your report?
I think it's been covered. Thank you.
Okey-dokey.
And that's.
At this point in time, I will call, yes,
One question
Frank.
before you all.
Yes, sir.
I'm remembering the discussion about the road extension. Well,
836.
this was years ago.
Yes, it was.
Our policy or the strategic regional policy does not include, I'll put it in these terms, holding the line on the urban development.
We don't have that.
Correct.
It's not in there, that's correct. Legally, it's
That's
not there.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issue is only, we have two, environmental
And
and
transportation.
transportation. And, all right. Joe, I will, if you want to, I will let you present and I will let Mr. Swagon
Mhm.
present. But no, I wanted to ask you and
No.
want me to let you present, because I think, as I've been looking around nodding, that 30 days from now is when we will reach a decision on the merits on this, and we'll want to hear everything that you're saying. I think right now, the inclination of the board may be, if I'm reading it correctly, to recommend a finding of
If I could-
inconsistency.
if I
Yes.
could. We will, just so everyone's clear. This is a proposed amendment.
Thank you.
It transmits out, it's gone from House. We will not consider it again. What we will consider again, well, we could, if it comes back with, if the Miami-Dade County Commission proposes and moves forward with the amendment,
Adoption.
the amendment then comes to us as adopted. At which point we would again find consistency or inconsistency, but by that time, we will have the input.
Well, let me ask Sam a question. Do we have the ability to issue at this point a finding of inconsistency because we don't have the necessary information to make the determination and therefore can't say it's consistent, and we only have the two options, but also take this up again at our next meeting and then give a, either a ruling on, a finding on the merits to the Dade County Commission, even though we will already have fulfilled our statutory finding, do we have the ability to bring it up again at our next meeting and then say, at our last meeting, we we found it inconsistent because we didn't have the information. So now at our next meeting, we will make a finding on the merits. Can we do that?
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
It's a two-part question.
Yeah.
And the two parts are, you don't know when the county commission of Miami-Dade will actually come back with a final
Yeah. it could be.
Right.
amendment.
They may do it before we're,
So
we meet
today,
again,
if you
right.
choose not to waive your legal rights to comment, which I believe you would choose not to do.
right,
You can caveat that recommendation with any number of different subparts that you've done in the past traditionally. To that extent, you would not waive your rights. And to the extent that you would choose to have some interim review of the application between now and the county commission's final adoption, the answer is yes. You have that process that you could also implement.
okay, Mayor Ross.
Then couldn't we do the flip side of the coin and say it's consistent and still hold it contingent until we get it back?
That's a policy decision which I can't render, but it's one that you have the right to consider. But you do have the staff's testimony about what their belief system is based on the facts as otherwise offered thus far.
Okay, at this point in time, okay, let me call Commissioner Fur, or is it okay if I call in Commissioner Goldstein first? Okay, let me call on Mr. Goldstein and then I will call on Commissioner Fur.
I appreciate it. As
And by the way, we have you have a right, an absolute right to have a public hearing before we take any vote. So, yes,
no,
and that includes Mr. Swaykon as well. Unless you chose to defer it, if we're going to bring it up at the next meeting.
I've been practicing law for 35 years. I'd suspect that my client is somewhere on that TV. And or I guess that shows how old I am. That's what- And he and they would be wondering why I didn't have anything to say.
That's right.
I have been there.
Yes, I know. First of all, Joseph Goldstein, attorney law, offices at 701 Brickell Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant in the comp plan amendment process.
I thought your office was in Broward.
No, he's got that. I am.
I lived in Broward for
Okay.
35 years
Okay,
and miss it.
great.
First, let me thank staff for two things. One is getting through the presentation that we did and write their recommendation in basically 12 days. Takes a lot of work to do this right. They did it right. I do believe that the staff's report was very balanced. I think that I think our client was very pleased to see the recognition by staff of the critical nature of this truck parking and service. The use that we're talking about is a truck parking facility with a transfer terminal, but really also certain commercial activity, because it's really not the best thing to have trucks driving around Western Dade County. You don't see a whole lot of them going through the drive-through of McDonald's, but so the use that we're seeking to get approved through the county is really sort of a mixture, and it's really an actual use. It's a truck plaza use. There are lobbyists in Washington that specifically deal with truck plazas, and this is really something that's long overdue. As you saw in the staff report, the MPO, TPO studied it to death about 12 years ago. But every time that there's some plan to sort of think about doing it, there's a better way to spend the money on the land to do whatever they want to do. And so this is really an opportunity. The question came up, you could do this without expanding the UDB. Yes, it would require an amendment to the comprehensive plan probably in whatever the open land sub area. It'd be physically changing it. It's not expanding the UDB, but it would only be for parking trucks. That's what's happened thus far, is it's only parking trucks. And trucks need to get fixed, and truck drivers need to eat, and truck drivers need to shower. And so this is.
Are you impugning the cleanliness of truck drivers there?
I think that they are very, very clean. And
Okay, when you
need
said
a
that
shower.
they need to, right.
We all need a shower.
We all need a shower. So the debate here is, can we or should we basically say it is generally inconsistent with the regional policy plan? And obviously, when that goes to the Dade County Commission and it says generally, Regional Planning Council says generally inconsistent with the comprehensive plan or regional policy plan, that can sometimes be taken as if the Regional Planning Council thinks that it's generally inconsistent with the regional policy plan. And you know, I wonder if there's the other solution, which is finding it consistent, but having it sort of clarified. What I would like to do, and that's why Mr. Swaik is here, is ask Mr. Swaik to sort of work through or walk through what the BBC issue is here. And that was really the goal of showing up here today, was to have him make a 5-10 minute presentation on BBC so that you understand the issue, the unknown and unknowable issue, and would consider the alternative, which is DOT says we're okay. Just because, you know, there's an open question on the other side doesn't necessarily mean that you're not okay. And unfortunately, the statement being made today, if it is generally inconsistent with the regional policy plan, is a negative statement that we're hoping to avoid. With that,
But we do caveat that due to lack of information.
And
I understand.
right, Mr. Goldstein, I think, and I think I'll talk again to our attorney, but I think that a lot, whether we do a finding of consistency or inconsistency, either way, I think it will say inconsistent based on the fact that we lack information, and we will do a hearing on the merits at the next meeting, or consistent, but even though it's consistent, it may not be, and we will make a finding on the merits at our next meeting. We simply can't make a finding either way, actually, until we hear from SFWMD, but we can't not take any action, or we then lose our right to comment completely.
Understood. Maybe Mr. Swaik can help.
Okay, first let me call on Councilmember Goldberg, and then I will call on Mr. Swaik. Were you done, Mr. Goldstein?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
Joe, for that.
before you go, are there any questions for Mr. Goldstein? Councilmember Goldberg, you're recognized, sir.
Thanks. Just real quick, you made the comment, if you decided not to impact the UDB, then you have to go through, it's a different, you can't get the use you want?
The state, correct. The statement that we could do it outside the UDB is we can park through a comp plan amendment. We can park trucks. It's a permitted use in other locations outside the UDB simply to park trucks. But
you can't offer services.
You can't offer the services, and that's what's been lacking.
So that's why you need to go.
All right, but Mr. Goldberg, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is we collectively have nothing to do with the urban development boundary. Personally speaking, I wouldn't like to see it expanded, but that's me, Steve Geller, resident of Cooper City, not me, Steve Geller, chair of the SFRPC, because as chair of the SFRPC, I don't care what Miami-Dade does with their urban development boundary, because legally we can't care. The only issues we can find consistent or inconsistent is environment and transportation. FDOT says it's consistent. So the only thing we're waiting really to hear from is the SFWMD, hopefully at the Army Corps, but we'll hear from them, 3 years after this is fully developed. They're slow. Having said that, and I would not think it's fair to any property owner to wait till 2025. I don't have a problem with saying we're going to hear this, and we'll hear what Commissioner Furr's motion is, because he will be making the motion, but we'll be hearing from Commissioner Furr on the motion. But whether it's to recommend incompatibility, inconsistency, but we'll come back in 30 days and have a hearing on the merits, or a finding of compatibility, consistency, but we'll come back in 30 days for hearing on the merits. Either way, I think we're going to have a hearing at our next meeting on the merits, and hope that Dade has not yet already taken action.
I'll kick it over to Ed. And
Okay.
Ed, while you may want to.
Oh, no, there were, Councilmember Kaplan had a question.
I just wanted,
Right.
following up on what Commissioner Goldberg was asking, I just want to make sure that I'm correct about this. Did the Board of County Commissioners determine when they considered this, that the reason that it's unsuitable west, or rather east of the urban development boundary, is because there's not enough space for the ancillary uses?
No. But I believe the county staff's reason for their recommendation was to say that there's no need, essentially. That there is available land inside the UDB, but we don't need to go outside the UDB to do that. We've done extensive analysis of available land that can hold a 40-acre site. And the design of this is not no mystery. In the staff report, the staff talks about the 2012 study. What we were asking for is essentially that, same size washing facilities, same size restaurants, same size, all that sort of stuff. So it really came out of, oh, well, maybe there's like another spot. And the spots that they came up with that qualify are like in the middle of Golden Glades. There's one south of the airport. And we don't agree with them. And that's why we're here and pursuing.
And remember, we do not have any authority to make any finding based on the UDB. It's only, and transportation is not an issue. Our question is environment, and we don't have that information yet.
Now I'm going to tee it up and say.
Okay, so before we're done, are there any additional questions, either from anybody in the room or from any of the members only on screen? Did I see Senator Garcia's hand up? Senator
Yes.
Garcia, did I see, did you have
Yes.
your hand up, sir? You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if anyone there has the applicant. I think that South Florida Water Management District, someone did make a comment at the, either on the application, I'm trying to think about the compatibility with the environment. There was going to be some land swap that was going to happen, or some wetland preservation. Does anyone have any information on that?
I might be able to provide some insight into that.
Okay, but Mr. Straycom, before I'll call on you to answer that question only, I will be calling on you to make a presentation. As soon as Mr. Goldstein is done, you're the next person up. But before you go, I want to find out if there's any additional questions. So Senator Garcia, would it be okay with you if, since your question seems to be, or at least the answer seems to be coming from Mr. Swaycon, if we just finish questions of Mr. Goldstein, and then we'll call Mr. Swaycon and I'll call on you for that question. Is that okay with you, sir?
Fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
Okay, are there any additional questions either from anyone in person or SFRPC council members only of Mr. Goldstein? If not, thank you, Mr. Goldstein. At this point in time, I think we will hear from Mr. Swaycon, and then I believe Lorraine Mayers, who is from the South Florida Water Management District, ex officio. Mr. Swaycon, it might help if we heard from her first. Do you have any objection to that? I did say I was going to call on you next, but okay.
It's your meeting, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yeah, but once I tell somebody, I try and do what I say I'll do. So Lorraine Mayers, are you here?
Yes, I'm on the line and I've.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any comments that you can make, please?
The only comment I can make is that staff is reviewing it.
And do you know when your staff will be completed, will have finished your review?
No,
know
I
it
don't.
has to be within the 30. You have the same 30-day requirement that we do.
No, I don't have a date to give you at this time.
I think your deadline is October 28th. Is that correct? Okay, you don't know. All right. All right, so thank you, Miss Mayers. If you think of anything else that you do want to say, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. At this point in time, I'd like to call on Mr. Swaycon. Mr. Swaycon, since we will be doing one way or another, a hearing on the merits 30 days from now. Can you try initially to answer Senator Garcia's question? And do you need him to repeat it, sir?
I'll be glad to, and no, I understand what he's asking, I believe. During the.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. And for the record, my name is Ed Swaycon. I'm president of EAS Engineering with offices at 55 Almeria Avenue, Coral Gables, Florida. I'm an environmental consultant that has been practicing in the South Florida area for the last 40 years. I believe Senator Garcia was asking during the county commission hearing, there was discussion of acquiring, the applicant was going to acquire land that was on the county's environmentally endangered lands list and make it available, provide it to the county as a one-to-one swap, not for mitigation purposes, but for offsetting the inclusion of this area within the UDB. And that indication was made at the county commission. And Senator Garcia, I believe that's what you were asking, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Garcia, did that answer your question, sir? Senator Garcia, did that answer your question, sir? Senator
here,
Garcia, are you there?
Yes, yes, it did answer my question. So thank you very much. I apologize for that, but yes, it did. I didn't know how to take off the mute.
Make sure you're an old friend that we answered your question.
Yes, 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 you're good.
Okay, Mr. Swaycon, if you want to continue, sir.
Yes, thank you. So what I have on the screen, and I hope you all can see the shared screen.
We can.
I just want to make sure that we understand where this property is and some of its characteristics and its relationship to the historically known Everglades Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, SERP, and the currently ongoing BB project. We are 4 miles from the Everglades and we're 11 miles from Biscayne Bay. And both of those projects, SERP and BB are intended to benefit and work with enhancing Everglades and Biscayne Bay. Let me just see, I gotta advance here. To put things in perspective, someone was asking where we were within the total framework of the various activities. What I've shown here are Everglades National Park, as well as some of the components of SERP, the ones that are shown in Biscayne Bay or in Miami-Dade County. This project site does not interfere with and is not part of any of the existing SERP footprints. The BB project, however, has a very large study area. It includes almost all of Miami-Dade County, goes north of the county line, and includes all of essentially the developed and undeveloped portions of Miami-Dade County. Our project is a very small footprint, 40 acres, located where it says project location here on this map. BB is evaluating a number of alternatives.
I'm going to briefly interrupt you, sir. Can I ask everybody that is not speaking to make sure that you are on mute, because we're hearing some other voices on. So please make sure that you're muted if you're not speaking. Please continue, Mr. Swaycon.
Thank you. The BB is evaluating a number of alternatives to provide additional water, primarily to the southern portions of Miami-Dade County. In their current round of alternatives, they are not including the project site as a potential site for any of the activities associated with BB. The closest activity is this area shown in purple, which is known as a water preserve area. It's important to recognize that in the selection of their first components are the ones that have the most realistic opportunity for actually being implemented in some way to provide the water that Biscayne Bay and the southern model lands area in Miami-Dade County need.
Mr. Swaycon, am I correct that that dark blue line is the UDB?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And if you can see it, our project site is located right down here in this mustard colored.
We see it, it's on our report as well.
Very good. There is one component in one of the alternatives that were presented months ago that would incorporate a portion, or would incorporate our project site. But it's a 50,000 acre water preserve area that that is very broadly drawn and actually includes, if you look at this, the developed portions of Miramar to the north, and includes developed portions, areas inside the UDB in the southern parts of the area. What we're asking you to consider or evaluate is it realistic that BVCR would ever use our property? And our proposition to you, and hope you understand, is it will not. The only two alternatives that included our project site are the most aggressive alternatives that they're considering. They're in the alternatives with the name storage on steroids and the Big Kahuna. The likelihood that they ever select or create a water preserve area so large so as to encompass our property is very remote. When you look at the conditions on the site, these are not pristine wetlands. This is not the Everglades. These are highly impacted wetlands on the fringe of urban development that are heavily impacted. If you're going to look at and expand development into areas that are wetlands, and we're not discounting the fact that these are wetlands, they are compromised wetlands. These are the types of areas that you want to do it. Your suggestion that the Water Management District is going to give you guidance and say, hey, Swacon's right, we're not going to select their property, therefore go forward, is, in my opinion, incorrect. They're going to, in my opinion, they're going to take a very holistic approach and say, we're still evaluating alternatives. We can't make a decision. I'm suggesting to you, because of the critical nature of this particular use, the impacts that already exist on the property, the small footprint that our property occupies within this 50,000 acre water preserve area, that it's extremely unlikely that we will impact in any way BVCR. When you couple that with other things that are on the map, for example, the 836 extension and the already approved developments that are south of our particular site, and a proposed WASA reuse facility to the west, I think the likelihood of our property interfering somehow with BVCR becomes even more remote.
WASD, please. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry for us Dade County people, not. And in summary, we don't impact any existing SERP project boundary. We're not included in round one, which are the most likely alternatives for BVCR. There are some other environmental benefits. We've recorded a covenant for the southern 10 acres. We have a water and sewer master plan. We have a stormwater master plan. We're not adjacent to any district property and or canal. We've already conducted our bonneted bat survey, and we're going to be isolated in the future from any further consideration of wetlands to the west. And so with that, I guess we're asking you, or I would be asking you to say, considering the critical need for this particular use, truck facility, and the likelihood that this will ever be incorporated, we would hope that you would find us consistent with the regional policies.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing no questions.
What's the status? You mentioned the Target and BJ's development proposed for nearby. What's the status?
Yes, very good. Good memory. You must be younger than me.
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
It's being site plan.
It's already approved.
It's already been approved. It was approved 8 years ago. What's interesting about it, so This is our property, the orange. The target is here, just to the south and east. This area is actually, will be used for the target, has been approved for use by the target for access and stormwater management. So can't put the use there, but you can put the use surveying facilities.
And that, so that area to the south is part of the water management plan?
That's my understanding from my partner who's doing this. Is that the target is to, the target in BJ's is to the southeast. And then this area that's to the south is really part of the infrastructure serving this project to the south.
Right. Let me, if there's no further questions, thank you. I will call momentarily on Commissioner Furr. Gentlemen, I just want to say that based on what you've said, I think that when we are making a decision on the merits, I think there's a good likelihood, bearing in mind we haven't heard full presentations, that we would agree with you. The concern, I think, expressed by the council is if we start, we have, as far as I'm aware, never before done approvals when we haven't received comments. And the concern is that if we do this here, then other people, when there are projects which aren't as good as, or as much in compliance, consistency, I keep wanting to say compliance, consistency, that there will be a problem. So that I think, I think we will still have to have a hearing on the merits one way or the other at our next meeting. Commissioner Furr, did you have a motion?
Yes, I'm going to make a motion to follow staff's recommendation to find this presently inconsistent due to lack of the opinions coming from the South Florida Water Management.
And Commissioner Furr, would it be acceptable to you to say, to add to that finding of inconsistency based on lack of information, but also adding that the commission, that the SFRPC will be having another hearing on this in 30 days where we would, or not 30, at our next meeting where we would be able to make a finding, because at that point in time, we would have the report from SFWMD would.
Hopefully,
yes. Well, they have to under the statute. So would that be acceptable? Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Is there discussion and from either in the room or any council member on screen?
Just one.
Yes, Commissioner Kaplan, you're recognized, sir.
In addition to the Water Management District, are there other agencies, Durham or anybody else that's speaking to this?
Yes, but not necessarily within 30 days. The only one that has, but the Army Corps. Right.
Yeah, I think we do want to hear from. Because
I don't know
what all you don't know what all the plant, the big.
Hell could freeze over
I
from
know.
the Army Corps from the Army.
Exactly.
I'm willing to put this off for 30 days. I'm not willing to put it off for more than 30 days. So, did that answer your question, Mr. Kaplan?
Senator Garcia.
Senator Garcia, you're recognized, sir.
I think I just heard you, but so by us delaying this, it's gonna put it off for another 30 days because we're waiting for some.
No, sir, we have to take an action, either yes or no, or we lose our right. So what we would do would be follow the precedents that that the SFRPC has done in the past, and we haven't had reports. Say currently we have to find it inconsistent, but that's only based on the lack of a report. And therefore, we're finding it inconsistent for now, but we'll revisit this at our next meeting. And we'll give a updated recommendation to Dade County at our next meeting, which is currently scheduled for
The third Monday of November.
third Monday of November. Roughly a month from now. Okay, did that answer your question, Senator?
Yes, yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, is there any additional question or comment from anyone, any commission, SFRPC member, either in the room or on the screen?
I second Commissioner Furr's motion.
I'm sorry?
I second Commissioner Furr's motion.
Too late, it was seconded by Commissioner Kaplan, but we'll have you fourth it because Mayor Ziotti thirded it. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing no discussion, it is now in order to vote. Does everybody understand Commissioner Furr's motion? Sam, would you restate it,
I would
please?
like to, just for the record, the council, if you vote in favor of the pending motion on the floor, you will support a finding of inconsistency with specific language, which will be added to the transmittal, which will indicate that because of a lack of information, a lack of data, which is not otherwise provided because of timing, the council is finding it inconsistent, but subjecting a further review to a complimentary hearing, so to speak, within 30 days, which is not required by statute, but which this council has in the past offered up as a condition of trying to be good fiduciaries in public and to try to review what would then be available in the way of data.
I would recommend, because I don't know if the next meeting is 30 days or 31 or 30,
Yes,
right?
the
So
next
let's,
public hearing.
right, at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the SFRPC.
That's a mistake here.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion as read by Mr. Gorin? All the votes.
He said it a lot better than I did.
Okay, all right, all those in favor?
Need a roll call, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's do roll call. And again, assuming that this passes, which I think it will, understand that the hearing on the merits of this will be in 30 days. We're just basically postponing it. We have to make a recommendation of inconsistency. Of course, we only have two choices, consistent or inconsistent, but we are specifically saying the only reason we're saying it's inconsistent is we don't have the information, which is due on the October 28th. And at our next meeting, we will make a hearing on a recommendation on the merits. So, yes, sir, since you are here for the public hearing, can I call on him?
You may.
Okay, you're right. Please state your name.
Come to the microphone and begin the podium and tell the record who you are, your name and address, if you will, and what capacity you come to the meeting.
It's Sherman Gallagher, Felix.
What was your name?
Felix Osarte.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
I work with Joe Goldstein, different office, but he's my co-counsel in the case. I'd like to just make a point of clarification in terms of the motion. I think it's important to say in your motion that the lack of information.
Yes, I found that was a mistake.
The lack
Got
of
it.
information, is not lack of information provided by the applicant. But it's lack of information coming.
Absolutely would say that.
Yeah, I
Right.
think we need to say that because obviously, I don't want.
That's fine.
No, no.
Because when this goes back to the county, right?
Right.
I want to have very clean records.
Sure.
Right.
Quite frankly, I think we're gonna go back in November. I think we're gonna have a hearing on this November 16th or
I
something.
saw that. Yeah, I
Right,
saw
well,
the date.
sir, what it would say is that
I'm sure.
in the motion, that the reason that we're recommending no is specifically, we don't have
Yes.
information yet from the SFWMD. And that,
Or other
or
commenting
or other commenting agencies, right? So, all right, in that case, all,
on the
at
roll.
this point in time, please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But hearing is now closed, and Bailey, yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Keith. Cold Iron,
Yes.
Cardino,
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Garcia,
No.
Goldberg,
No.
McGee,
No.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Ziotti,
Yes.
Matter passes, Mr. Chair,
and
I haven't voted yet.
almost.
Yes.
Yes.
And please understand that what we're doing here, what we have now done is just adhere to our precedents that says that when we are waiting for a report that comes in later in the month, it depends what date people apply as to whether or not we meet first or the SFWMD or other groups meet.
Weapons of war.
Right, that sometimes we just don't have the information, at which point we do bring it up again at our next meeting when we have the additional comments, and that's all that we've done here. So I just wanted to clarify, and the letter will, our transmittal letter will clearly say that we are not making any negative recommendation based on the merits here, but simply because we don't have the information, and that we will take another vote on the merits at our next meeting.
Well, when we receive it again from Miami.
Right. Yes, or when we receive it again from Miami-Dade. Yes, sir. Senator Garcia.
Is it, I appreciate your comment, making sure it's that clear. I think my no vote is in particular because of, I've already heard what's happened. I know where South Florida Water Management District was. It's just really, for me, it's unfortunate that we don't have that information prior to taking this vote. And then a vote of inconsistent is one that just, I get what we're doing, but this is why I voted against it. Simple as that. So
We understand, Senator. And again, yeah, we will take pains to make clear in the letter, based on what I've heard, and I'm practiced law for 40 years, so I know not to reach a decision when I've only heard one side. But based on what I've heard, I expect we would find it consistent at our next meeting. But I haven't seen the comments yet from the environmental agencies, so. All right, so by your vote, show, as the attorney has already announced.
Matter passes 9-3 if my notes were correct.
Yes.
Yes.
At this point in time, we will revert to item 3, comp plan amendment reviews, consent. I'll ask the attorney to read the proposed agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, 3A are the consent items, which are the comprehensive plan reviews for the following governmental agencies. Number 1, Broward County 22-04 ESR, Broward County 22-05 ESR, the City of Cooper City 22-01 ESR, the City of North Miami 22-02 ESR, City of North Miami 22-03 ESR, and the City of North Miami Beach 22-01 ESR, the City of Sunny Isles Beach 22-02 ER, and the City of Sweetwater 22-01 ESR. Those in the public
Okay,
hearing.
thank you. The public hearing on these items is now open. Can I ask if there is any member? What? There's no member present.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
See you next month. Can I ask if there is any member on the screen that wishes to comment on any of these items?
And nothing in the chat.
If not, show the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Ross moves, seconded by Commissioner Kaplan, for the approval of the proposed consent comp plan amendment reviews. Please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Kate's,
Yes.
Iron,
Yes.
Paradino,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Goldberg,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
Siadi.
Yes.
Matter passes, Mr.
Chair
Chair.
Geller.
Yes.
Yes, with your vote.
You keep it out before we vote. Okay.
I read your mind.
Show that motion adopted. Please read the adopted public hearing consent
Thank you,
agenda.
Senator Chair Geller. The next item of the adopted and a public hearing will follow. It's Broward County 22-02 ESR, Monroe County 22-06 ESR, the City of Coral Gables 22-02 ESR, the Town of Cutler Bay 22-02 ESR, the City of Key West 22-03 ACSC, the City of Sunny Isles Beach 22-01 ESR, and lastly, the City of Tamarack 21-02 ESR, all adopted, and a public hearing, Mr. Chair, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Can you tell me if we have any person on the screen wishing to comment? If not, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Ross, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Any discussion, seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying, excuse me, please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Kate's,
Yes.
Holdire,
Yes.
Cardino,
Yes.
Burr,
Yes.
Garcia. Goldberg,
Yep.
McGee,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Eugene,
Yes.
Ciati. Yes. Chair Keller.
Yes,
And
thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. My pleasure.
And let me revert back to the Miami-Dade, show that adoption. Let me revert back to the Miami-Dade, and although I am saying that we will have a hearing on the merits, that of course assumes that the applicant shows up and wants a hearing on the merits. If it has already been adopted by Miami-Dade, they may obviously choose to forego their hearing because it will come back to us again anyhow.
Yeah.
So I think I will ask, unless there's an objection, we will ask our executive director and or attorney to advise them that there will be a hearing if they want one. And if not, we will hear it again after it has been approved by Miami-Dade.
Sure, if you can, I refer to as a complimentary hearing, which is again a supplement to today's presentation and
Yeah.
recognition upon many different items that you don't get to control yet today.
Right.
Correct.
So I would ask again that we notify them, because obviously we don't want to have a hearing if they're not going to be here. So.
That's right.
Okay. I believe we are ready now to revert to the SEDS. We told you what an amazing group we had, the ridiculous amount of work that we did. So let's fly through this. Again, I've been waiting to see the final version of the SEDS before I write the letter saying what the SEDS says. Say that 3 times quickly.
Everybody about this conference recording.
And our executive director has requested that we go over our solid waste management joint SFRPC, TCRPC meeting while we still have everybody here. This goes here.
Yes, thank you. As you know, on this upcoming Friday, the 21st from 10 to 4, we're excited to be hosting with the Treasure Coast Regional Council, a 7-county regional conference for primarily elected officials, administrators, mayors, and waste management professionals. So we have sent you all the draft agenda. It is an in-person meeting, okay? And we will be sending you the parking instructions where you can park and all that good stuff. So some of the topics, we will be presenting a regional overview of solid waste management with one. We'll be talking about waste energy, recycling, new technology, circular economy type things, biosolids management, nutrient recovery, a lot of time on recycling. And then we're going to have an expert panel talking about staff, okay, directors, talking about how to coordinate, collaborate, where are those opportunities? Also, I meant to mention, we also have DEP coming as well. The main thing is that it's going to be really embarrassing to have this conference if our own board members aren't there. So there hasn't been a whole bunch of registrations, and we certainly want you all to be there, and we also want to have food for you. So, which
What
will,
kind of food?
I don't know.
When he goes out.
We can negotiate. Okay, so, but it'll come in a box. So, I just want to mention, please go ahead and register. You're going to be getting additional information. It's going to be a really great conference and moderated. The 7-county expert panel talking trash would be moderated by Councilman Burke. So we're excited about this and really want you all there. Okay. And thank you.
Are there any questions on that? At the risk of being repetitive, everybody here has heard me say for years that once they have done away with, the state did away with our power to make substantive real approvals or denials of projects, that I thought the only reason that any of us should still be active in this group is if we actually did things like regional planning. Between the SEDS, the solid waste hearing that we're having, the affordable housing conversation that we had, with the different mayors and leaders of the Tri-County area, and with the upcoming last mile and transit. Carl, the SFRPC is actually acting like we are planning for the region. And I'm really excited at everything that we've been doing, and I'd like to congratulate our executive director. We've really been doing what I think we all wanted to do for a while.
I recognize staff as well. They're drivers also.
You have no idea how many hours we all spent on this SENS report. I promise you. However many you think we do, Rhonda will tell you it was a lot more. Okay, so let's start running through on page 2. You'll see a little yellow. That's just, I asked at our last meeting that we comment a little bit more about just, I doubt that anywhere in the country has there been a SEDS report with the kind of blue ribbon membership that we've had. I can tell you none could have been any better. All right, let's move on. What I'm asking is if anybody has any questions, I'm going to fly through this, stopping at the yellow. If anybody has any questions, whether it's yellow or not, please interrupt us, okay? All right, we described the region, Dade, Broward, Monroe counties. If you look at the bottom of page 4, there was just some confusion. One of the problems we had is statistics, where we would have statistics from different agencies or different sources, and they conflicted. And sometimes our report therefore had conflicting information. So we had to try and, right. And I think that we have done so. And so in some cases, they have data that, for example, would say, well, it's looking like it's like inflation is going up, inflation is going down, jobs are going up, jobs are going down. And it would depend on whether you're looking at a 5-year, a 30-year, a 2-year. And so we've had to clarify that.
As long as you source it, you're fine.
Even if we source it, if it looks like we have conflicting numbers. So sometimes we sourced it and sometimes we just clarified the timeframes from the conflicting reports.
It's a difficult thing, the data and the data availability and consistency. So we've done our best to address.
Right. So if that was page 4, we're going on to page 5, page 6. You will see later where we're discussing the housing prices that we have said that we expect, because this report is being issued right at around time interest rates are going up, that this is based on historical. It doesn't include that. We also, when we talked about insurance rates and we talked about hurricane risk, we also said later in the report, please note that this report was basically finalized before Hurricane Ian, and we could not completely rewrite that section because we still don't really know the amount of that. So we talk about, again, at length, the problem with affordability here and the housing crisis. We have mentioned that, again, although it's not highlighted, if you look on page 7 directly above the picture, that is highlighted information, which was, because in our last one, we were taught our sales data was from 2020 housing prices, and that was just irrelevant. And remember that, these are now our updated numbers.
Right, and there's
Right.
a difference between listing price and sales price.
Right.
And that's clarified later in the report.
Okay. We talk on page 8 about the labor force. And you'll see that our unemployment rate in South Florida is lower than the nation and is basically lower than the state, with the exception of Broward, which is 1/10 of a point different, but the overall region. Did we, if you recall?
All these are updated.
Right, okay.
It's all
Yeah,
twenty
all
twenty
right.
data, okay?
Okay,
With exception of ballots, which is only available in 20.
right. So in some cases, as we went through it, we were referring to data from 2017 report, the SEDS, and that data had been issued prior to that. And I think we've now eliminated all of that data because anything prior to basically 2020, we thought was not really current. Councilmember Goldberg,
Just,
which page are you
I'm
on?
on page 8,
Okay,
Fort Lauderdale average rent. But then it goes down, says that rent equivalent to a housing cost of 51%. Median house, where is that in? Do we not, do you have the trending on it of where?
Well,
What percentage
it
of
may be
their
in
income?
in this particular case, it may be in the report that was prepared by the Metropolitan Center, Dr. Murray, that was presented to Broward County in August on the update. So I can send you that
I just
presentation.
like to see where it's gone over the years.
Yeah,
That's
I don't,
big,
that, again, that was, we will look to see if
and
that's.
we did comment later in the report that Central Florida and South Florida are the two most housing burdened
Yeah.
areas in the country, and that it is not
The country.
based in the country, but it is not based strictly on price. And we pointed out that there are other areas that have higher prices. The way that you calculate that is housing as a percentage of income. So South Florida, Central Florida do largely because of the large number of people in the fairly low paid hospitality and tourism industry. Housing is relatively high. Wages are relatively low. And that is why they're the most unaffordable in the nation, not based on raw price, but based on the calculation of price as a percentage of income. And we went into that later in this report. So, and Isabel, I remember in Miami-Dade, at one point it said 53 and another point
It's all
later it was
corrected.
59 and
Yeah,
these
it's
are
all
now, okay.
corrected. Yeah. We
Uh,
need a header for this chart. This is a higher educational
Right.
institution, the major ones.
Where's that one? What page?
That would
Page
be,
11,
well, it's on
the page
page,
0.
yeah, this is where after 12, it starts at 0 again, which is why I had to review.
Okay,
It was more, I can't do formatting.
either can I
But
tried.
this is higher education, and this one came out of the said committee, that it was important to elevate this asset that we have here. So it was suggested that a map
Right.
would help. to-
And what we did, because we went over, we spent a lot of time on determining what would be included and what would not be included. We included the state, you'll see the chart
Yeah,
later.
there's gonna be a title.
We included the state universities, the colleges, the vocational schools, the major 2 and 4 year degree, private such as Kaiser. But we also left out there were a lot of colleges where there may have been a branch with 50 students and they were
And those are
originally
the little
on.
pink dots.
Yeah, and we said,
The light
no, if
pink
you
dots.
listed their names, right, you couldn't look, it would be useless. Let's look at all of those little pink dots. So we didn't name those. Again, as we told you, we did a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And this was the report. This was adopted by the SEDS committee. Then under page draft second, page 1, it shows the 6 pillars. Again, this was nothing we could make any changes on because this is basically just,
And it's a framework that's used by
Right.
all the regional councils, and it links up to the Florida Chamber Foundation. So, and also, I know there's more pillars in Broward now, it says the one, but they started with 6, and I know they've updated that. But the one that's consistent pretty much across the state is that 6-pillar framework.
Right, if you turn to page 3, yes,
Well, I would only say only, and yes, you're right on that. But there has been a major change in Broward, and I wonder if
Just Broward.
just Broward, because
Just
now it's not even called 6 pillars.
I know, but it's just Broward.
Okay.
Miami-Dade doesn't use this, yeah, it's just Broward. This is the statewide framework.
okay. If you note on the bottom of page 3, that with the chart says Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach. By the way, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach is the name, I believe, of our SMSA, what's that
Is
stand
that
for?
the metropolitan statistical area that's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach? A lot of information about our region is based on that MSA data.
Right.
Okay. So
Which
we're able-
results in
Yeah.
great confusion because we keep mixing data from Monroe, Dade, Broward with the MSA data,
That's the best we can do.
which is Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. Nothing we can do about it because different sources, but an important thing, if you notice at the bottom, one of the big problems we had is on a lot of our charts, they weren't dated. And if they weren't dated, they were showing conflicting data based on different years. So we went back and made sure that we date and source all of the data.
This is a really interesting chart from.
Yeah, it really is.
Chamber Foundation, because it really shows where you have a gap in employment compared to employees. In other words, more employees than jobs, and places where there's more jobs than employees. There's
The only change I might ask you to make on this is instead of the light gray, which is a little hard to read.
all this will be formatted properly.
Okay, well, it'll be format. I'm just saying change.
No,
the
but I mean, the colors
Right.
need to be updated, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Then we go into our vision statement. The vision statement we met. This was examined at great length, debated at great length, and then adopted by the SEDS entire committee. And then they broke down into work groups, which also had very interesting people. So this cannot be changed by this group because it's already been adopted by the SEDS itself. And if you will turn to another unnumbered page, the priority goals.
There's 4 goals.
Okay, I'll ask everybody to run through this. I'm not sure if we have the ability to alter these or not, but these have been voted on at least 3 times at different meetings. So,
On this one.
right,
You're talking about goals.
yes, the priority goals. Do we still have in the
No,
okay, right, okay, right. Again, maintain the competitive edge. And, you can look through this. Remember, please feel free to send us comments on this, because there's no way. Oh, at our last meeting that we did this went, I believe, 3 hours, and we didn't have a chance to go through all of it. So it's just not possible to go through this 100-page document in detail in an hour. If anyone feels strongly about adding any potential implementation partners,
that's always.
but we think that we added, I mean, theoretically, we could have 50 names here. We think we added all of the major
We
ones.
just took everybody.
Number 2 was create vibrant and connected places to connect the quality of life. I don't know. There's not a page.
No, yeah, the
It's
picture-
chart 2 that shows a picture of mass transit and a picture of something that I don't know, could be an atomic structure or
Interconnectedness.
Yeah, I think that's.
is that what that is?
I think we can look for a better one though.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of talk about here and other and transit-oriented development, which I think we all agree is something that we need to do. Priority goal 3 is design, construct, maintain resilient infrastructure. We're talking about water, wastewater, housing, insurance, sustainable land development patterns, planning for natural disasters. And then priority goal 4, promote regional cooperation. You know, when we're having a meeting on Fridays, remember to be there because that's regional cooperation.
Does
Yes,
solid waste, trash fit in?
yeah. I believe
You
we
know, we
included
could,
that.
we were going to, but honestly, we're gonna have a lot more information on Friday about that. So it's not in here now.
No,
If it
okay.
was gonna be in there, it'd be probably just, we have a lot of trash.
You might want to include septic on the,
Oh, yes, okay.
Right, okay.
Since I didn't
Under
read-
priority goal 2, implementation partners.
Oh, yeah, I thought we were.
Well, it's already there, South Florida Regional Transit.
Oh, that's-
No, that part DA. not-
Yeah, it's the Southeast Board of
Right, okay,
Transportation
right.
Commission,
Right,
which
okay,
is the 3 MPOs.
right, okay.
including Palm Beach. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we'll have something on solid waste, but we'll know more about that and I'll run it by the chair. Anybody wants to
Okay.
do it. But it's not
I,
gonna be massive.
no, but I think that under resilient infrastructure.
I thought you meant as a paragraph in your report.
No, it seemed to park elegantly under the priority 3 somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Resilient infrastructure, maybe 3 point, I don't know if we can change it, because this has already been adopted by the,
I don't think anybody's.
okay, but if we just do a 3.5, that would just say something on the order of well, actually, we could do that under economic shocks, where it says enhance and protect the environment and the region's natural resources. And number 5 is create 3.55, create resilient infrastructure. And perhaps we can put something in there as to, you know, methods of dealing with solid waste. I think that's a
you
good
might
catch.
just want to promote regional coordination.
Yeah. Okay. And then, well, then maybe that would be under priority goal 4, which is promote regional collaboration.
There you
We'll look at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think probably goes with priority goal 4. And then I made a change which wasn't we had consistently been referring to the region as bordered on the east by the Atlantic Ocean and the west on the Everglades, which is true if you're talking about Dade and Broward. But when you're talking about Monroe County, it's bordered on the actually south, the east by the Atlantic, but the south and the west by the Gulf of Mexico. So we changed that throughout the report, which had not been how we referred to it in our last sets.
Or the 3 ones previous.
Right, but you know,
This was hard.
we don't want to forget Monroe County, because Monroe County is very important to us, isn't it, Commissioner Kodai?
Yes, it is. And thank you so much for recognizing Monroe County today.
Okay, so again, economic resilience.
I'm gonna go back for 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. When it's talking about
Where?
number 1, invest in workforce development.
Okay.
I do think you have to put in there somewhere to make sure that you have high quality childhood care. Because that is the beginning of that. If you don't have that, even it's in the 6 pillars. You've got under talent and workforce development.
Right.
It's number 1.
I think we've included that in here.
I guess I'm not seeing that.
Else, no, not
Oh,
in the goal, but in the report itself.
Okay.
I'm almost certain that we referred to.
It's never looked at as an investment.
Right.
And unfortunately, it really is.
There was extensive discussion, but I think it's appropriate for us to add it. But yeah, if you look on page 32, and there's other places where we talk about paths to prosperity and root causes of poverty, child and family care is one of the like mustard yellow near in the bottom left quadrant, but I think we've discussed it in other places. But I have no problem. This doesn't violate the integrity of anything we're doing by
Right.
just adding, a sentence on that, because we do discuss it.
Right.
But I agree, it should be in the goals as well. But we did recognize
That's
that.
long-term planning.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Here.
and Commissioner, again, remember, we can make additional. Okay, please submit changes to us.
Yeah.
By Thursday.
I know later.
Yeah, by 5 o'clock Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. And I,
Section on septic on page 15.
yeah, and I hope everybody has as much fun reading this as I did each time. Okay, and if you look at economic resilience, we talked about, this is create the emergency operations centers.
Oh, it's not
yes.
affected. So, and Rhonda can explain this as well, but the work groups, Rhonda, the primary worker manager on this project. So the work groups came up with projects because the idea is if you identify the project in the sets, it is more likely to get funded later on. Point to the site and said this was celebrated as a regional project. So this does not list the projects because that's in the appendix. This lists the anticipated outcomes of some of the projects. So that's what this is.
Okay, so, and then if you look on page,
I don't know the project.
what says page 12, where you see a chart dealing with sea level rise, we can make no changes to this because we are essentially quoting the South Florida Regional Climate Change Compact. So we cannot change what their report says. But we basically, do we still have, we took FDR, right?
Sorry.
Okay, or up until the last version, we had an ARC in here at my request, and we changed it to just show flooding, and all of you have heard my ARC speech, right? Okay, good. And that, I don't give investment advice, but if you live in Broward County, invest in companies that build ARCs.
So this is.
And if you look on page 13, where you will see a whole bunch of yellow, a lot of this came from Dr. Harado. I think most of you know Dr. Harado and Caroline Moran, who used to work for Dr. Harado. And she also wrote, or largely wrote and reviewed the CNSF project. And then I added a little bit more of the sky is falling language to it, because I really do think that the sky is falling, or in this case, if the water is rising, and we will be flooded in 10 years. But okay,
Is all
so
the yellow added?
Yes, from the version I had sent you earlier in the week. So I thought, we have.
And this is all from Parada.
no, Dr. Harado and Dr. Moran.
Right, the part that's different is the first two paragraphs. We wrote, we had received from Jane Gilbert.
But
he's the officer.
we had them review it. Right,
Okay, that's fine.
okay,
May I
yes,
ask one?
no. Okay,
Would it be helpful?
yes.
The chart that deals with intermediate NOAA, extreme NOAA, would it be helpful to summarize what the different municipalities and counties have adopted by way of an assumption?
Well, the four counties
Please mute yourself.
They have adopted the universal sea level rise through the compact.
This is the climate compact.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, this is a quote out of the climate compact language. So this is all,
Yeah.
right,
So it's already, everybody refers to that.
Okay.
good,
Is the unified sea level rise projection.
right.
So.
And it changes.
Okay, I have not, I'll go over this. I'm not sure that I wanted to say that additionally, I have not seen this language before. Governor DeSantis championed the
That's
passage
been
of
came from the
resilience.
water management district.
Well, of course it did, but we'll take a look at
All
that.
right.
Okay. So this language I haven't seen before.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, we'll take a
You
look.
can take the
Right.
governor's name out, but
Right.
legislature.
I just say legislature passed or something like that. Okay, we'll go back and take a look at that. Now, CNSF, we've discussed this at great length here. Continue, that's page 13, page 14, where that at the top of 14, where the flooded streets was until last week a picture of Noah's Ark. Goes on. And we just said here. Hold on, that, at the bottom, left bottom of page 14, that, the problem is
You're
that,
talking about the Army Corps of
Yeah.
State of the best case scenario.
yeah,
That's line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
right, okay, right, here it is. Okay. Initial, assuming full fondo, right. So we'll take another look at that, make sure that we convey sufficient alarm. And the water, wastewater we're talking about, again, one of the problems is septic tanks. As sea level is rising, septic tanks will not be working properly. And I chair the Broward County Water Advisory Board. And at our next meeting, we are largely going to throw up our hands and say, there's very little we can do because the legislature has apparently preempted the field in almost everything that we can do in terms of enforcement. The only things we will be able to do is ask the cities to voluntarily get data for us, because the best way that there's already language that says that you cannot replace or substantially repair septic tanks. Then why are there 12 companies that pulled that number out of the air doing that? What we should be able to do is subpoena the 12 companies and see if they're repairing or replacing, except the legislature has.
But you don't have a choice if you don't have a sewer line next to you.
Right, but in areas, no, it says that if you don't have a sewer line, if you have a sewer line next to you that you should be connected to, that you can't repair or replace, and there are many that we know are being repaired and replaced instead of connecting. And the reason that they don't want to connect is they don't want to pay the monthly fees, or they don't want to pay the connection fees.
But it is
So,
required, most cities require it. Hollywood requires it. I had to do it.
Right,
Personal experience.
Okay. yes, but we're finding that if the city knows, and in many cases, the city doesn't know.
Well, that's a whole different ballgame.
Right, but I don't want to get into that. That's water, come to our next water
We're gonna
advisory
have a,
board
we're gonna have
meeting.
a larger conversation
Right.
about that.
Okay, population, let's see. So you'll see again, we're saying that fixing the septic tanks will require billions of dollars to do.
And the funding's coming from where?
Exactly. Which is why we have largely thrown up our hands at the Water Advisory Board level, other than to recommend what Port St. Lucie is doing. Is they have something, and it works for a small city. They have been had a revolving loan fund where they're doing it, and it's being rolled into the water fees. Anybody that makes a connection running with the land for 10 years. But there's a lot of upfront costs. They're only doing 300 homes a year. So if we do that in Broward County by the year of 33, I believe will be done. Okay, population trend, page 16. We talk about the age, and this is very important, age of population trends. And I think one of the things that I asked us to include, which I believe we have, is that not wanting to wade into the middle of a national debate. But one of the reasons that we're having a shortage of employees is lack of immigration. And right, yeah.
Otherwise.
Right, a drop in immigration due to the pandemic and policy changes left the workforce short, smaller. Now, yeah, I think, well, it's my view that we have to have some comprehensive immigration policy that will both secure the borders and let workers in, whether, and then beyond that, whether we determine that in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, they should be citizens, or whether it should be, just letting temporary workers in for certain limited periods of time. But I know that we are growing older as a country. And one of the reasons for high inflation is a worker shortage. One of the reasons for a worker shortage is our current stance on immigration. So we're not suggesting how we fix it. We're just pointing out a data point there. Commissioner Burr.
You should, if you're trying to do that, you should be showing the birth rate as well.
Yeah, birth rate has dropped a lot.
Yeah, birth rate has dropped, and whenever you're looking at it, you gotta look at who's coming, who's going. So.
Right. We did point out that surprisingly, in South Florida, foreign-born residents are older than the national average. Now, that could mean that we're attracting older immigrants. I think it means we're attracting younger immigrants who are growing up here. So, all right. We move on page, yes.
Real quick, I had heard that the last year.
Yeah.
That the Broward did, and I don't know if, I think it mainly had to do with COVID, but that both Miami-Dade and Broward had lost some population. I know we've been hearing all kinds of, an influx, but.
The data that we have and that we have cited to, the last reliable data that we have is the census data. So that's what we use. I mean, we've heard about, Isabel, did we put, I have, and I think
we had out migration from the region, but it was sort of masked by immigration from international places, other places.
right, but I think we should consider putting in, I'm sure you can look up quickly and find that there have been articles that Commissioner Burr and I have both seen, I'm sure most of you have, that there are suggestions that there has been net population loss in Dade and Broward over, well, no. Domestic, right, you did put that in there.
Yeah, that's in there.
Yeah, it's in here that talks about data from moving companies saying if they are moving more people out than more people moving in.
That's another important reason though to have the birth rate in there, because it will tell you the trend line in terms of the number of people being born.
See, this
And
recent
that-
one- yeah,
Reflected.
What page are you on?
on page 16,
Okay,
on the second column, the second sentence.
yeah, actually, it says, let's see, the most recent, on top of page 16, most recent population shows population decline for Miami-Dade and Broward. And talk maybe masked partially by international migration attributable to trend development. So that is in there.
I'll add the birth rate stuff on this.
Okay, what birth rate data are you talking about?
You want to
South Florida or national?
There's both.
regional.
Regional,
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, that's really easy. How many people were born in Miami-Dade, how many people born in Broward for the last?
okay.
Well, that's not so easy. What you can talk about is the trend that the birth rate per family has
No,
dropped,
it
the
is.
number of kids.
You can get that, that's fairly easy to get.
Commissioner Burr, can you find that data?
Yeah, let's see what I got.
Great, okay.
No good deed goes
I
unpunished.
know.
Great, okay, to move on.
Okay.
We're on page 18, and we're gonna have to pick up the time on this veteran. I think we're scheduled to go to 12:30. I like ending at 12, but okay, but I think our calendar today, it does not have us ending at 12, but at 12:30.
We never end, we never put an end time.
Oh, okay, veterans. Originally, it had said what a large veteran population, but then when I saw the numbers, I said, 120,000 people in Dade and Broward combined is not really a large percentage, so we reworded that. K-12, there's a lot of discussion on the decline in public school, public non-charter school enrollment. And so we discussed this starting at the bottom of page 18, that there are 6, I think that may now be 7, public schools,
Yeah.
public charter schools, public magnet schools,
So my-
private secular, private
Yeah. I'll
they-
take that number.
online and homeschool. Yeah, it's 7 now, because I added in private faith-based.
We differentiated between
Right.
the private schools between
Right.
faith-based and secular.
And if you look, it shows that except for Monroe County, public school map, top of page 19 is actually decreasing. And we point out that one of the reasons for this may be charter schools, online education, all of the scholarships, et cetera. We did point out at the bottom, Commissioner Furr had raised the concern that we point out about the potential for resegregation of the public schools. And that language is included at the bottom of page 19. If you look in Miami-Dade, the
Yeah.
white students, which we hate using that language. I just hate white, black, and Hispanic because they're
Hispanic
also
is not
broad.
white or black.
Right, it's not white or black, and it's not all Mexican like most people in this country
Right.
think. Black does not reflect the difference between African American, Caribbean American, and
Right.
first generation people from Africa like Nigerian.
So I will
But it did
mention,
show that in Dade County, the percentage of white students is now down to 6.3%.
because they
yeah.
look like the Department of Education looks the place in the world of origin.
Right.
That's how we.
Right. So we talk about K-12 school funding. And I will point out, Commissioner Furr, as we all know, that the Broward County is under the FEFP because we are a heavily Democratic county. We are getting less than the statewide average, while Miami-Dade, because it's a very mixed county, is above the statewide average. And, that's life. But it used to be, I remember one year when Jim King was Senate President, when they made a substantial change where they dramatically reduced the impact of costs. Because our CPI, we used to get more money because we had higher CPI than schools with few students had a rural, I don't know what it was called, but a rural supplement. And we had a supplement based on cost of living. Well, they kept rural, and our cost of living was dramatically reduced. So you will notice that.
Yeah, because we used to get more
Yeah,
money. so
yeah,
they-
statewide average is 8,560. Well, let's look at most recent year. Statewide average is 9,457. Dade is $1,000 a student more than that. We're $70 a student less than the statewide average. And again, when we try to discuss our educational rankings, there's 50 different sets of educational rankings. If you're Republican leaning, you'll say we're doing great. If you're Democratic leaning, you say we're doing horrible. And that's just based on which party in power. And so we mentioned some of the different ranks, and what we've done is footnoted or listed the reports that we relied on. Are these the best reports? I can't tell you, but we had to pick reports, and we said what the sources were. And according to the Florida Department of Education, which of course would want to rank us high. It says we're 23rd among the 50 states. There is some language in here somewhere that shows that the paragraph before that our funding is between 42nd and 43rd among the states. I've also seen data that shows us as low as 48. Again, it's just too hard to count. There's just too many studies. So we picked what we thought were fairly representative and cited to the studies. And there's just not a lot we can do on that. Something that I think is very important, if you look at, and if you look at page 22, I asked that that yellow highlighted language be included. It showed that that refers to the chart on page 23, students reading at 3rd grade proficiency were at 2019, we were statewide was 58, and then went down in 21 and 22. Broward and Dade both the same. Broward and Dade were both at 60% in, I'm sorry, we're both at 60%, and then went down to 57 and 56. So it's very clear, without making any judgment whatsoever on whether or not we needed to close the schools to prevent teachers from getting sick or anything. It is absolutely clear that closing the schools did have an effect on 3rd grade reading comprehension. And we talk about the fact that you can tell a great deal, this back on page 22, that it's sad to say, but students, you can predict based on their 3rd grade reading skills largely how successful they will be in life in terms of academics.
And this is an average. So when you look at the data, what you find is that there's schools that are failing 70%.
Right. And which I was going to say,
60%.
these numbers, the state of Florida has changed on page 24. It's grading standards.
Mhm.
So basically every county will be going from A's and B's to F's. Unless my prediction is they'll make the tests easier because nobody will be willing to admit that every county is failing. So, instead of right now at 60%, I think that's a grade A. Is that correct?
And it's so right now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think 60%.
62% is an A.
Yeah, 62% is an A, and then below
No,
that,
when I went to.
on my book, right, and then,
When I went to school, and that meant we got
right,
behind.
and then they're changing that to be an A, you've got to be at 90,
Right.
90 to 100. There are no counties in Florida, I believe, that will be able to get an A. As a matter of fact, under that scenario, every
That is
county
terrible.
in South Florida
Too.
we will be either a D or an F. And the ones that are Ds, Miami-Dade you need 61, you need 60 to get a D. Dade was at 60 and Broward was at 60 before the pandemic. So I guess they would have been a D minus.
Well, that's not the only thing they're based on.
Yeah.
They're based on a lot of stuff.
Okay. Well, look at
I mean,
page,
that's one of the data points.
if you
Right.
have any changes on page 24, take a look at them. What we should say.
And I say in here that it's learning gates, graduation rate, acceleration success. It's also funding. It's a
Right.
bunch of different
It's all
stuff.
Right,
But if you're a parent, the one you care about is that your kid can't read.
right. If you look at page 25, this is a chart And Isabel, where is the language
There's a
that
link to
follows that
this, or,
chart?
well, I know it's conceived it now, because.
But to make that, if you're trying to do a direct cause and effect
Uh-huh.
based on the third grade reading scores and saying if you're not at 60%, then you're gonna be an F. That is not a corollary. That is, those are two.
I think
totally
we-
different-
Right, I understand.
I think we need this clarified. And we say that at some point in time, where,
These are the interactive maps,
Right.
the paragraph design.
Yeah, no.
Page 24.
no, I'm talking about on page 25.
Right, this is where it talks about it, Senator, right here, the interactive maps for Florida Chamber Foundation.
Gotcha, okay, right,
This,
Name.
these are maps,
A little bit.
right,
these are maps.
okay. If you look at the second paragraph, on page 24, the second paragraph says interactive maps provide a visual picture of failing schools being in predominantly low income minority areas.
Yeah, this is just a snapshot.
And that
picture,
shows
but
on
you
page,
can
the chart
Zoom in a lot.
are on page 25, which just show that,
That interactive
again,
thing,
the problem is we have an equity issue
Well,
here,
it's also,
which
you know
we
what,
deal with later.
and we may want to rethink how we're saying that. Because not every one of the schools is a failing school.
No, we're not saying.
We're saying visual picture of failing schools. That's how it's read. And
We don't say that in here, say interactive maps.
right,
Visual picture
provide a
of-
visual picture
Okay,
of
so let's
failing
take-
school.
Let's just take schools down, people can make their own conclusion, I'll take failing out of schools.
Because
Right.
many of them are,
But that's accurate too,
well, it's accurate based on the way they're using criteria. Yes.
right?
Okay, I think we said,
But if you're bringing kids from point A to point B,
I just take failing out. Right, the visual picture of schools and predominantly, I just change that whole thing. And
Yeah,
then
well-
people can draw their own conclusions. But all I can tell you is that data shows. these schools
I
have
think we
Right.
should be putting this in here because I think it's important that we're showing that we are that, we're not providing necessary resources in
what is,
And
the
actually-
bigger part is showing.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is the childcare inequity in each of these, because they don't start it
Right.
at the right place.
Isn't, hold
Start
on,
at the
I
same place.
think,
There's a lot
okay,
more to come.
there's hold your remarks for a few moments.
Okay.
Okay,
There's a lot of contributing. factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. it is.
hold your remarks. Okay, so
Without doubt, the socioeconomic is the biggest one.
hold your remarks.
Got it.
Okay. Access to broadband internet. We talk about, on top of page 26, right-hand side, the need for, good jobs for workers without bachelor's degrees. I've been pushing that for quite some time. High-paid jobs, high-paid jobs, high-paid jobs. We continue on page 27. We continuing to talk about, jobs for people without bachelor's degrees. Page 28, we're talking about higher ed. We're talking about the Marine Research Hub, the Levan Center, the again, the whole Marine Research Hub. We talked about higher education funding, where we did note, and again, depending on the source, at the top of page 28 in the right, Urban Institute says that Florida had the lowest level per capita of spending for higher education in the nation, while the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics say that we're 25th in the nation in support for higher education per FTEs. By the way, that needs to be corrected, FTE apostrophe, small s. Because it's FTEs.
Got it.
Right, and they're both accurate because one is measuring amount per state capita state population. The other is measuring how much you're spending per student. But what that means is that we're sending a lower percentage of students to higher education than other states. And I believe we have put in here did you include in here what I asked on that amount has been decreasing? Remember, I said that the amount of that the states across the country, including Florida, have been
No, that's not really-
okay. That amount has been decreasing over recent years.
Which amount? The
That's easy.
FTE
No, the amount,
Per capita?
yeah, the amount of state funding adjusted for population and inflation, the amount of state funding that each state has been spending on higher ed has been decreasing. And that's one of the reasons so many people are taking student loans. And it's less state funding for higher education. And I think we need to put that in there, and I had mentioned that. If you look at the bottom of page 28. Okay. You did, okay,
I took out the thing that said
Right.
per capita was a lesser benefit.
right. Okay, so let's, we'll work on that. You note at the bottom, these are the ones that we chose to include. The regional schools of higher education. Now, the Alice Index, where we're about to get into a lengthy thing on poverty. Alice Index, but one of the problems is a lot of this was based on 2018 data, which I think has limited use,
They
but
don't
at
update
least,
very much. They don't.
right, so what I insisted on was saying that, if we're identifying it as 2018 data, then everybody can adjust for it, because it's the most recent data we have. So we're talking about the Alice households. And it specifically says it's pre-pandemic. We differentiate the difference between poverty rate and Alice rate. And Alice is if you're burdened, while poverty is just, the raw number there. A review of the data shows 2019.
Yeah, so you
Right.
see what happened here is maybe it could be, so. there was
What
a-
I'd asked for was they had the data, but no comparison point. We just had the South Florida Alice data, but we didn't have the national Alice
So
data.
this
So now
is-
we have a comparison.
Yeah, and this has, it also shows that poverty worsened in 2019, and poverty rate in households in 2019 in Broward was equal to 60%, where in 2018, you can see the poverty was 13%. Miami-Dade County was worse at 20% in 2019 compared to 2018, 17%. Again, the problem with data.
It's
is-
only 1 year and
Yeah,
it's pre-pandemic and it's 3
Yeah,
years
who
old.
knows? Yeah,
So
exactly right.
you can't make a trend based on 1 year, but that's what the data we have.
Yeah.
All right, beginning on page 30, I'm going to ask people to look at this fairly closely, because this is kind of important stuff, what Commissioner Furr has been talking about. Look at children. Okay, starting on the top left top of page 30. We've discussed this repeatedly and decided to leave it in. But we talk about the economic position of many children is closely tied to the economic mobility of their parents. That African-American children have much less upward mobility, more downward mobility than white children. Numerous studies have found that, this was again from Pew Charitable Trust, that the family structure
Very important.
matters. And that we then go on to say that from the Alice report, Florida in 2022, we discussed single family head households have the highest poverty rates, unmarried couples, married, different sex. Again, the data is not really in question. You have to read it carefully to make sure it's not inflammatory. And again, there are numerous resources that discuss the deleterious impacts of growing up in families lacking a father. It says that, you know, this is just what the data is showing. And then we went on to page 31, quoting from Florida House, the mothers tend to be more nurturing and emotionally supportive. Fathers tend to focus more on preparing children. And then if you look at the social institutions, that's the chart at the bottom of page 31. Again, this needs to be printed
Yeah, I don't know
in
why
an
it came out
easier.
so light. I don't know why. I wasn't here when it was.
Okay. So there's a lot of language on page 30, 31 dealing with the importance of families, and then page 32, the top left, the Broward Alliance, bless you, was here, and they were talking about recognizing that they have started a program.
To help mothers,
Yeah. And they,
single mothers.
right. So I will ask everybody if you want to take a look at that language. And this is already at our last SEDS meeting that was,
Like, what time already?
yeah, we've gone over this language 3 or 4 times. And that was approved by Bob Swindell, who was talking about, you know, what they're doing there. And then we're talking about equity, building pathways to economics. And we talk about, if you look at that chart, the 10 root causes of poverty, which is the Florida Chamber chart, and, you know, food security, child and family care. And let's see, we talk about right above the chart, not all communities in South Florida. We talk about the necessity to improve access of communities, especially low income, to enhance the opportunities, education, workforce training, well-paying jobs and careers, essential services, affordable housing, transportation options, childcare. One of the big issues that Swindell said the Alliance will be dealing with is childcare at the top of that page. Then
And he also mentioned that, and I have it in another part of the report, that the education, the schools is a major challenge when trying to attract new companies to the region,
Right.
public school system, and they actually have to negotiate more resources
Right.
in order to compensate.
I'd ask that be added. And then page 33, we were talking about, again, gaps in income and the high level of economic inequality in the region. And then we went to define what is income inequality. And if you look at that, you'll see that, according to the Miami Urban Future Initiative, Greater Miami had the 9th highest rate of poverty. But we also have a lot of, if you look at the charts, our income level is roughly the same as Broward. So if their income is comparable, but they have a higher rate of poverty, it means there's more people on the high and more people on the low, which again is what we've been talking about the decline of the middle class. We then talk about on page 33 equity. We talk about the Broward Up program, which I think is very important, which is a program that teaches tradespeople basically how to get their 2-year and 4-year degree. And when they get their 4-year degree, what they learn is bookkeeping, marketing, and everything they need to have a successful small business. Then we talk about returning on page 34 to the high cost of housing. And again, we point out one of the reasons is we just don't have developable land. And then we talk about, there was a lot of discussion because I didn't believe it, but apparently it's accurate on energy on page 35, that we are the nation's second largest producer of electricity after Texas. I thought we said we were going to check that. Did we?
Ms. Rulak never got back to us in regards to that, so I'm assuming that the information was correct.
Well, we need to check that because Juliet said she didn't think that it made sense either. I find it hard to imagine that we are producing more electricity than California.
That was what was on the.
Yeah, but
I know, but we just need to check.
we need to verify that.
Yeah, we need to verify.
Now, this case did come from US Department of Energy, but I don't care. I still find it hard to imagine. And then we're talking, I did not realize that we
Because a lot of
actually
gas.
were
Yeah.
were producing natural gas, but apparently we are. Key contributor, Port Everglades, and we discussed climate, environment on the right column, page 35. Talking about, if you didn't notice, it rains a lot here. And we are in a, I love our most two prominent climates are tropical savanna and tropical monsoon. Yes, so again, which leads to bioarts, because we will be flooded. Then parks, then we talked about coral reefs, and I'd asked us to mention specifically what the SFRPC, we had mentioned reefs, the coral reef, but didn't mention the new legislation, which we were largely responsible for.
And I took the shortcut. I know it was reviews after we passed it, but it was, no one knows that, no one cares. You know, let's just call it. It's just a ridiculous thing.
And then we kept talking about the coral reefs. We spent multiple pages on coral reefs. You're welcome, Commissioner. Then we went into, again, housing, affordable housing, again, talking about the limited amount of land available for development bordered by Atlantic to the east, Everglades and wetlands in Miami-Dade and Broward, and Gulf of Mexico to the west in Monroe. And we talk about, contributing factors also are investors buying single-family homes for conversion to rental, conversion of affordable housing to vacation rental. The region is a popular destination for second homes, increased demand from international and other in-migration, and then adding in aged housing stock, low rental vacancies, et cetera. And again, we went on to say due to limited availability, high cost of land makes it prohibitive to build affordable housing without significant government assistance and funding, and higher density, which is frequently opposed by local residents. We continue on low income. We talk about, again, a median listing home price, page 39 talks about the home. And then you'll note what we said right above the map. While South Florida does not have the highest housing costs in the nation, it is among the most unaffordable because high land cost, high cost of living, and low wages. Or we may want to say relatively low wages. Yeah, okay, because it's just low compared to the cost of housing.
On the graph on 40, right, where it says average rent comparison. Is this the?
I'm sorry, where is that?
2-bedroom?
Page 40. Page 40.
It's an average,
That's just an average of houses and 1-bedroom.
average, yeah.
Overall.
I think they,
I think Zillow looked at every listing,
yeah,
Okay,
and that's what.
I didn't know if that was such a, okay.
Okay,
yeah. That's why it says average rent comparison. I understand your point.
right. Okay, there is no question, the raw numbers may be skewed somewhat by whether it's 1, 2, or 3, but as long as they were measuring the same way in 2017 as they measured in 2022, what the data shows is that there have been dramatic increases in rents
Right,
over
it
that
is for
5-year period.
overall average rent.
Right.
That's what, because here in the previous page, I have here a report in the highlighted paragraph, the last sentence, overall median rent was this. And what they did in that chart is they morphed it all, they took an average of all the.
I didn't know if that was
But if you ask somebody else from us too.
Okay, and I'm going to start flying through, because we will be done by 12:30. I think the report actually stopped on page 76. We have 36 pages to go.
So hang in
in
there,
20
you're
minutes.
almost there.
So we talk about on page 40 and on to page 41, part of the cost problem is the cost of insurance, which absolutely affects the cost of housing. But then we did say that we can't include anything about Hurricane Ian in this just because we still don't know. We talked about homelessness.
Two,
What?
1 and 2.
Yep. We talked about the fact that people, the fastest growing cohort of homeless are people over 65 and explained the reasons for that. We discussed transportation, starting on page 42, beginning with the Florida intermodal system. We did discuss that we're working on it. We discussed that most people in the Miami urbanized area drive alone, 9% carpool, 3% public transit, 1% bicycle, 2% walk. And the fact that more people are walking than biking, we did talk about that. Unlike cooler, drier areas of the state and nation, tropical heat and frequent showers are hindrance to biking. We mentioned in here about regional transit, mentioned Brightline, talked about that in August 22, the Broward Commission approved the plan to study the development of the southern segment of the coastal link, and talked about the problem is we still have to figure out a bridge over or a tunnel under or time warp through. I like the idea of barges.
A wormhole.
Yeah, wormholes or barging across. But one way or another, we have to figure out how to get the cars something around under through time warp through the New River. Then small business. Now, the problem is small business are 99.8% of all Florida businesses, which tells us absolutely nothing because small businesses are 500 or fewer people. Well, that I don't really consider a company with 400 employees. It's more of a small
This
business.
is one of those areas where it
Right.
gets complicated because there's
But
also
conflicting, right.
revenue and different things. There's different measures.
Right.
But if you look at a chart that we have in the appendix, you'll see that the vast, and it actually explained it in the following paragraph.
Right, that's what I was going to say that.
Yeah.
The next paragraph is important because that talks about small businesses with less than 5 employees and then goes 5 to 9 and then businesses less than 19. Now, a data point that we don't have that please tell Isabel when she gets back that we should include there. I didn't see any information. I meant to say we should have this. What percentage of the workforce, we may know what percentage of the companies are 19 or less, but what percentage of the employees work for companies that are 19 or less? I think that would be, and I don't know if we can find that data, but I think that would be important data to have.
Companies of, what was the number?
19 or less.
19 or less. Because we refer to them that these businesses represent about 90% of the region's small businesses, and it refers to Appendix 2. So, Appendix 1, It's the appendix two. Here's appendix two. Yeah, it talks about the number of employees in appendix two. Excuse me, the number of establishments, but it doesn't have the number of employees total in those establishments. So I don't know that we can find that data. But if we can find that data, Isabel, we should look. We know that businesses were of 19% or 90% of all employers, but I'd like to know what percent of the employees. If they're 90% of the employers, but only represent 15% of the employees. No, I don't.
Huh?
No, that's
Number
just,
of employees.
Oh, okay.
Businesses.
right, with 19, it doesn't say how many of that 90% of employees,
Are in there.
right? That just has a percent of
It's a
it.
number.
No, it's not on
I don't
this
know if
chart.
the data's available.
I don't know if the data is available. If it is, we'd like
No,
to
what
see
you
it.
want to know is the actual number of employees.
In businesses that employ 19 or less, there's 90% of the employers in businesses 19 or less, but it doesn't tell us the number of employees in
Oh, well.
90%. Okay, so then go on, we keep talking about small businesses, we talk about innovation, we talk about the fact that South Florida is now rising in the ranks of tech. We talk about there, we show the chart on page 49. On page 48, we talk about becoming burgeoning technology hubs. We show the maps of technology. We talk about page 50, regional industry clusters. And again, you higher the number, the more you're centered. So for example, we have very high international banking, intermodal bank transit, and cruising, because that's where they're centered.
That's how we roll.
Right. So we talk there, you'll note international trade financing, we're the second largest in the country behind New York. We have an 11.05. That means it's 11.05 times more concentrated in South Florida than most of the country. And again, this chart needs to be more legible.
All of them are
Right.
more legible.
It shows where the jobs are, where the clusters are, and what percentage, if you look starting on page 52, which shows our culture, or, showing, banking, and these are the ones that we have higher than average. And then we continue, these are just the charts.
So you can see that this one deep sea
Yeah.
transport. Really.
Okay,
Just so I understand when it
Yeah.
was given the question, the number.
that is what percentage of the one would be equal to the national average. So if it's 2, it means twice as many jobs in that area as the national average. If it's 1.5, it's 50% higher. Some are 10 or 15, meaning they're really concentrated here.
See, and one of the things that's interesting too, what I learned through the process, is not just the location quotient, it's also the number of employees in
Right.
that thing, because you could have a high location quotient, 3 employees. Or you could have, like the hospitality and cruise, a high location quotient, lots of.
Right. Agriculture, we talk about it really being primarily in South Dade. Because there really is not much aquaculture is Monroe County. Recreational fishing, a lot is Monroe. Aviation, we spend a lot of time talking about both MIA and FLL, and the fact that there are a lot of regional airports in both Dade and Broward. We also mentioned Monroe County, I believe, having two. Well, they're not really international. They say they are. I think they have like.
Michelle, I'm cleaning it up for you.
I think there's like, there may be one flight a day that goes 50 miles, but nonetheless. we
If
left
it's in
it
your
there.
title, you're listening.
We left it in there.
Six in Broward County.
General aviation, well, there's 6 airports, 5 of which are general aviation airports.
Yeah, FLL, I can only think Perry. and think-
Perry.
You have Perry, you have Pompano, you have FXE.
Executive.
You have the one at Fort Lauderdale, you have General Aviation.
I looked it up,
That's 4, so there's a 5th one that we're leaving out.
right, but I didn't list them all by name.
Right, but if you looked it up,
Yeah,
that's
I'll
6.
list them all.
I can think of 4
Right.
general, hold on, FLL, which had the general aviation, Perry, FXE and Pompano.
Right.
So that's 4 plus FLL, but 5, but I'm sure it says there's a
So
6.
whoever knows by Friday will get a box of chocolate as a prize.
Okay,
The executive on commercial, on Caroline.
Yeah.
yeah, that's FXE.
I'm sorry.
Right, but there's also a general aviation at FLL, agreed, right? And that brings it up to 4 general aviations that we can think of. That it's about hooking up right now. We talk about the growth, we talk about a company like Centavia, which is amazing. If you haven't been there, you need to go take a look at it. And they have like 200 employees, over half are engineers with the salary of like, I think their average salary is 150 or 160,000 a year. Remember, I keep being jobs, but high paid ones, all about jobs. We talk about the difference between FLL and MIA. FLL is more destination airport, MIA is more a hub airport. We talk about the defense, and I forgot, when I mentioned all the things we're doing, I forgot to mention we're doing the military installation review as well.
As regional planning.
Let's see, 6 Coast Guard stations. Did you ever,
Oh, wait, there's an extra.
yeah, we were gonna add,
Oh, no,
mention
that was okay.
about,
I added Pittsburgh,
right,
but not specifically,
Right,
because they're all over
right,
the place.
yes, okay,
They're in
right.
Miami Beach, they're in the Keys, they're everywhere.
right.
There's a lot of them.
Right. Then we go on, we're talking about the MER additional, then on page 59, almost done. We talk about our growth as a national financial center. We talk about banking. We also added somewhere, I believe, that we, yes, okay, that, page 60, right above the chart, last paragraph, South Florida Business Report, South Florida is becoming Wall Street of the South, with financial firms primarily from Northeast and California relocating to Florida. And, again, we don't really know, I think we said someplace also that this is not necessary. Just verify that it is that this is not necessarily reflected yet in the location quotients by industry for banking. Because that, I
This
think,
is happening in real time.
yeah, it's starting, they've announced they're moving down here, they are moving down here, but that's not yet reflected, but it's clearly happening. And it will be reflected, just not yet. We talk about the blue economy, which I think is very important to us. Again, jobs. Sorry, I keep being repetitive. That's on page 61. We talk about the Marine Research Hub. Did you ever check with the Marine Research Hub to find the language about?
I just put it in.
Okay, they will tell you that. Okay.
I think I just put it in.
Let's see, then, page 62, we talk about the creative media design. We talk about the resurgence in film industry, particularly in Broward. Yay. If you could change that to with it, jobs within, with the average annual wage, that should be statewide annual wage. Because I believe, and I keep telling people, I expect that the statewide annual wage is between 91 and 92,000, that South Florida should be over 100. But so you just insert the word statewide and it's okay. Then we also talked about, again, what we're doing. If you haven't heard about that, you should. Did you include any thing that they had sent pertaining to what the Kelly Shanley had sent? Or
Added this about the Performing Arts Center,
Okay,
and I wrote,
there it is. Okay,
ranking them out of the top
right. Okay, good.
and I added
Okay.
pictures.
And I also added at the bottom sentence there that I know during my time as mayor, and Beam, I'm sure you had the same when you were mayor, that having a vibrant cultural arts environment is one of the things that CEOs look for when they're looking at relocating. I thought it important to point out, how strong our cultural environment is if we're talking about job creation. Then we talked about the creative and then media design jobs. Then we're talking about global logistics. And again, Port Miami and Port Everglades able to reach 70% of the US population on the intermodal. We talk about, Miami and Fort Lauderdale being great, having great airports and expanding. And we talk about life sciences. And we talk about the I think it may be here, maybe medical, the healthcare about Nova, which has 8 colleges dealing with medicine, 2 medical schools, pharmacy, optometry, medical sciences, dental medicine, healthcare and nursing. We talk about the University of Miami Health Complex. We talk about, Converge Miami, which is again one of the other University of Miami projects. But that, there's really a lot going on in medicine and biotech. And we talked about hospitality and tourism. The reason that yellow is, I pointed out that we are now South Florida is the region of choice for the largest cruise companies, many of them in the world. I thought it important to add that. What page are you on?
I've got both on, I'm looking at 2 things that don't seem quite right. Page 67 real quick.
Yeah.
On cargo, deep sea freight transportation. The container shipments between Miami-Dade and Broward are almost the same. And the number of employees is starkly different. Something seems a little off there.
What is the source of this data?
Page 67, look at the container shipments, Miami-Dade, Broward, almost the same. Not look at number of deep sea freight transportation. Those kind of things, and you notice the employees are like a third. I see the same,
And there was one from Monroe County Way. It was one,
and I see the same thing happening with that kind of variation
right?
with regard to, let me get the right page.
We could
Well,
double
one of
check.
the, let me explain, Commissioner. This is one of those, if you check the footnotes, they're from different.
Yeah, this one's such a difference,
I
because I
understand.
see the same thing on page 72.
This was a problem that we had consistently where we're using data points from different sources.
Look at this one.
Yeah.
Page 72.
Right.
Hospitality and towards deep sea passenger transportation. It says we in Broward, only 323 employees. In
I can-
Miami-Dade,
I can get you more information.
7,000.
I can get you more information from Jobs and Q. That was a software.
But the number of
No, I know, there was another.
ships is not that much different.
I think,
In terms of cruise ships. So something's off. That's all. I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Before the cruise ship numbers coming in?
Well, I'm thinking deep sea passenger transportation would be cruise ships. Am I wrong there?
There's different things.
I have to double check. I have to ask, because we recruited,
I think we need a roll up, pardon me, I think we need from
Even
the
if it's a-
consultant, a description of how Jobby,
With more
what is Jobby
specificity.
Q's and what is it? How does it put numbers together?
Because it's like
I
30.
know, and there was one in Monroe County that I contacted a consultant to double check. in the fishing part because it was crazy number. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah.
It was a chart that was just crazy.
I had actually, Commissioner Burr raised that same question.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, I was told this is what the
That's what it's.
jobs EQ
Shows.
data shows, and that was the only data point that we have.
I mean, that's
So-
probably not how much, how many they have on one ship.
I would ask us, well, first, we need a definition of deep sea passenger transport.
Right.
But then, because again, maybe that's
True.
fishing boats and,
Yeah.
It's not just cruise ships.
right, we need a better definition. And then just verify, and what we had decided that we would do is if we footnote it and show what the source is, we cannot make up data. We
Right.
have to, you know, just quote. And on the rate of an employees, you'll note that the source for the container shipments was Port Everglades and Port Miami, while the source of the employees was Jobs
All of
EQ.
the employees.
So they're
stuff
two
is
different,
jobs.
right. So please try and verify, but we'll have to go with the data that we
I
have,
think it is what it is.
even if it's,
Yeah, but
Right.
it's not showing.
Because this was data also like, and so, as you know, we lost sounds like he died, but he didn't die, he just moved. Our economic development planner, Mark Cassidy, he moved over to Broward. So we contracted
damn them.
with the,
transition.
yeah. So we contracted with the East, another regional planning council that runs Remy to run all the data. And then went to the analyst who did all.
Yeah,
this
I'm
stuff.
sure I'm sure we're not using
Unfortunately, I
the
don't-
same.
Well, no,
I
think this is pretty
raised
standard
that
stuff.
question,
Um,
but again, at the end of the day, we can't, you know, if that's what the data shows, you know,
We can just put a sticky note, don't read this on it.
right?
I'm gonna have,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to take off. I got it.
Yes.
I'm looking-
Well, we need to have a.
I believe,
a vote.
wait, I believe we are, all right, I'm going to run through this next in 2 minutes.
All right, good.
Manufacturing, we don't have much. Marine industries, we do have much. Ports and airport, we have a lot.
We're done.
Fort Lauderdale, fast growing airport, Miami, larger airport. Opportunity zones, they exist and we're done. Okay,
And I will take a look at it a little bit more.
Sure.
now,
So we have to.
is there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve,
And we
wait,
have
wait,
members
wait,
here too.
is there a motion to approve the SEDS subject to
We have to adopt it.
technical and
Non-substantial.
non-substantial,
Non-material.
non-material changes that may be sent by members to be received by Thursday at 5 o'clock. Any comments received after Thursday at 5 o'clock will not be reviewed, but anyone prior will be reviewed.
I think the motion has to be approved and adopt. I think
Approve and adopt.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Burr, seconded by Mayor Ross with it. Okay.
Tell me what you want to educate.
Is there any debate? Seeing no debate. All of those, please call the roll, including members present and present online.
Bailey?
He's on mute.
Bailey?
No.
Go to the next.
Capman?
Yes.
Yes, for Bailey, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
Kate?
Yes.
Cold Iron?
She has no more.
Corradino?
Yes, Cordina.
Burr?
Yes.
Garcia?
Bill had a copy too. Well,
All her left.
Bill had a copy to be.
McGee?
But that's right.
Ross?
Yes.
Eugene? Ziadi?
Yes.
Chair Giller?
Yes. By your vote.
I want to say, everybody who worked on this, that was a really well done document.
Thank you.
Really a lot of work for everybody who did it. Thank you. I know that was,
Yeah,
To make it
all of
a
that-
little better,
Yeah.
to make it a little better, not that it's.
please send your
Good.
comments.
I believe that the superintendents of both school systems should have been included in the committee.
Too late now.
I know, I'm saying to make it better. Next
Okay.
time, look at that, that's all.
I don't think any of
I think
us
they were
in this
invited.
room will
I'm
be.
pretty sure
right.
they were invited.
Yeah, because we invited, I know every,
I gotta go.
yeah, okay, fine, thank you. I believe that they were invited. We invited,
It's just glaring that it's missing and there's so much in there regarding what they.
right, but we invited, I'd say 50% more people than attended, than accepted. Some people were just, no, we're just too busy to make it. But you have no idea.
Oh, the time. No, it
Right.
looks it, it looks it.
Oh,
It
yes,
does.
absolutely.
Well, your point about not just agreeing to participate, but actually participate.
Right.
That's good.
And I just, before we adjourn, the last thing I'm going to do is read what I think is the list of people that were on
It's
the
a
committee.
partial list.
But I'm gonna add, was everybody on the workshop? Was everybody in the working
Not every
group also in the
I
committee?
don't think that every size member was
Some
also on.
of them, like for instance, Miss Gretchen Beesing that's listed on the work group, she was actually a strategy committee member. So there are.
Do you have a list on your computer right now of who the actual SEDS committee members were? You should. And please make sure we fix this here, because it was just a really,
Oh, we're so
and we had
grateful.
great attendance. I mean, George Hanbury attended personally every meeting and one SFRPC meeting when he thought we were going to be discussing it. Do you have that chart? Because we need to finish.
We're pulling it up.
Okay,
You can apologize for my.
right. Okay, I understand.
You said good.
Thank you so much. See you Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, if I am,
I
but
don't-
you should safely assume I will be there.
Well, we need a right.
Yes.
And I got
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but I need to register, but we want to, yes.
Okay,
Do you have the list?
yes,
Please read the list.
yes. Alan Levon,
Levan.
Alfred Sanchez, Beverly Williams.
No, I need their titles as well.
Oh,
And the organization.
Right.
oh.
Alan Levan is the
CEO of BBX Capital.
CEO of BBX Capital, as well as the CEO of Blue Green, as well as the founder of the Levan Center.
Then we have Mr. Alfred Sanchez, who's the CEO and president of Miami-Dade Chamber. Then we have Vice Mayor Beverly Williams from the city of Lauderdale Lakes. We have Mr. Bob Swindell, who is the executive director, CEO.
President and CEO.
Of, I'm going to spy of memory, Chair Gill, I haven't gotten to.
Memory
is bad. Gotcha.
So,
Yep.
Carol Hilton, President and CEO of Career Source Broward. Then we have Daniel Reynolds, who is the president and CEO of AIC.
No, AFL-CIO,
Thank you. Like I said, I'm going off of the list.
that's Florida. Okay.
Daniel Samus, who is the CEO of the Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Drew Bartlett, who's the executive director of the South Florida Water Management District. He was invited, but he appointed Miss Dr. Carolina Moran to sit for him.
Okay.
Dr. George Hambury, President and CEO of Nova Southeastern University. Mr. Gregory Hale, who's the president of Broward College. Miss Gretchen Beesing, who is the chair of the South Florida Community Development Coalition, and that's why she was invited as well. She is also the CEO of Catalyst Miami. Then we have Mr. Jared Smith, who is the CEO of Broward Health Coral Springs, and he's also the chairman of the South Florida Hospital Association. Dr. John Wensby, who's the executive director for the Allen B. Levan NSU Center of Innovation.
He has two titles, actually, but yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Dr. Jonathan Gurvera, who is the president of the College of the Florida Keys. Then we have Council Member Joseph Corradino. He wasn't able to participate, who's the mayor of Village of Pinecrest, but he was also invited.
No, he participated.
That's some of them. Good.
He wasn't able to because of re-election and everything. He did tell us that he wasn't able to participate.
Go on.
Then Ms. Kareem Boutros, who's the executive director of the Broward Workshop. Then we invited Keith Kennick, who is the CEO and owner of City Furniture, but he wasn't able to participate.
He assigned Corinne, I think we went with Corinne Boutros since he couldn't attend.
Okay.
Ms. Lynn Goldman, who's the Community Relations Coordinator for Broward Technical Colleges. Then we have Ms. Madeline Putmariega, who's the president of Miami-Dade College. Then we also invited Ms. Maria Alonso, president and CEO of United Way of Miami-Dade, which she, during the process, she retired. Yes. Yeah, he was not. Mr. Matthew Rocco, who is the president of South Florida Manufacturers Association, which I know that he transitioned out of the role while we were doing the sets. We invited Mr. Michael Finney, who was the executive director of the Miami-Dade Beacon
Well,
Council.
no, so he was president CEO of the Beacon Council. He did participate and unfortunately passed away during the process.
Not because of anything we did.
Mr. Nelson Fernandez, who's the executive vice president of ANF Group, Inc.
They are the largest Hispanic owned business in Broward.
Mr. Newton Sandin, president and CEO of OIC of South Florida. Mr. Oliver Gross, who's the president of the New Urban Development LLC in Miami. Mr. Rick Beasley, who's the executive director of Career Source South Florida. And then we also had Mr. Stephen Abrams, who was the former executive director for the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority.
And then David Detch, who is the
Joined,
current
yeah.
director.
Correct.
When Abrams left, his replacement assumed his
And the
position.
same thing with the Beacon Council, William Calvert joined us.
Was Abrams Palm Beach mayor?
The Boca mayor, and he was Palm Beach commissioner.
A long time ago.
Right. Okay, is that the complete list?
Yes.
That's a pretty impressive list of people that accepted.
Yeah.
And attended at least one meeting. They left out FPL.
Ms. Juliet Rulak
Okay,
from Florida.
okay, let's make sure that we have a complete, correct list.
And
What's his name in there?
He was a part of the working group, and then when Ms. Rulak couldn't participate, he would actually join the group as well. So
There's
Mr. Ben Wesley.
There's a lot more people that
Yes.
participated through the work through the process. And there were sets,
Who
but
lives in TV, not Cooper City.
Yes,
Yeah,
aware of that.
yeah, because of the water situation there. Okay,
I'm going to report this out to the constituent jurisdictions.
as soon as this is been transmitted to U.S. Department of Commerce, Office of the Economic Development Administration, we will, yes.
Former Chair Bailey has his hand up.
Yes, okay, momentarily. We will make this widely available, and matter of fact, I would recommend that we have a press conference when we do this. Former Chair Bailey.
I don't know, who that's Joe.
Yes.
Member Bailey.
Just got a quick question. I was trying to see because I heard all the list of the people that we were invited. I don't know if it was a complete list. Just wanted to know that we invite Dr. Jason Hardrick.
Who is that?
I'm president of Florida Memorial University.
I don't know, we'd have to look at the list.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. I know that as I said, we invited I thought we had, is that a private college?
Yes.
It's an HBCU.
Yes.
I know it's
Yeah,
an
it's the
HBC.
only. Yeah. The only
Okay.
reason why I mentioned him, Mr. Chair, because it's the only historically Black college in South Florida. In Charlie, and so when we're doing these type of large research study, I think it would be great to have his voice or
Chair
someone.
Bailey, okay, Councilmember Bailey, you are correct. We should have thought of that when we
But we can have
had
it,
done that.
that's committee now, moving forward.
One of the things that we're looking at doing is having the SEDS, now that we've gone and formed this committee, be ashamed to abolish it. So we're looking at having it continue to meet perhaps twice a year or something like that or take on special certain projects, because I'm not aware of any other group in South Florida that has a membership comparable to this. And I believe it would be appropriate to add or to invite representatives of.
Additional representatives, sure.
Just a suggestion, if you're gonna do that, meet every couple of, twice a year.
Yeah.
Then instead of doing this report every 5 years, what you can do is in anticipation of that report, do the supplement every year.
We
if
have
you
a
will.
yearly update.
Okay.
Required by-
Wow, what an idea. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. And it is much, much.
The update will be 5 pages.
Okay.
Right?
Exactly.
And one of the things I'd like to discuss with the board, there's some software where it's expensive though, where you can put this so that it's automatically updating the data as it goes, but it's like $40,000.
I don't know how you could update
The governor.
I don't know how you can update the data when we've used 20 different data
Well,
sources.
we'll present, yeah, I know, but there's a company that has a thing that's very expensive.
Well, there's a thing.
Well, no, it makes it all interactive.
Okay, show it to us and
Yeah.
we'll discuss it. Okay.
And then you're gonna, well,
Is there, to revert to the agenda, we are going to skip the announcement about our upcoming meetings, other than to say, please urge. It is not a violation of sunshine to invite your colleagues or urge your colleagues to attend the solid waste
and your
conference.
solid waste person.
Yes,
whatever
your
that is,
solid
that
waste
has the
staff
correct-
person should be invited and your colleagues
And we
should be
did invite
invited.
them, but-
And any SFRPC member is of course invited. We will be having our next meeting on Monday, November 21st. There is not going to be a
So,
December meeting.
That's the Monday before
And,
Thanksgiving.
right, the Monday before Thanksgiving meeting will may or may not have a hearing on the Dane County issue. if they want. Right. Is there anything else to come before us? Going? We are adjourned.
Yes,
Mr.
brother.
Chair.
Thank you.
Let me go.